how's the tournament been for you all? I know you all had a great run.
Thank you. It was glorious.
Oh, it's all right.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
It was good.
we're
It
tired
was a lot.
as hell.
It was a lot.
I believe it. I would not have been able to do what you all did.
Mm.
It's a lot. It's just, I feel exhausted now. I don't even know if I have the energy to get drunk.
You always
Just kidding. Just
You
kidding.
always
I know it.
do.
I'm good. I'm good.
See, even if you have to just lay down, you should be able to do that much.
Funnel it into my mouth.
Well, let's introduce you to the people on the other side of the camera here. We are sitting here with Cornell KR, who is a quarterfinalist this year at the NDT, which means that they are a top 8 team in the country, which is nothing to shake a stick at, I would say. And we have Gabriella Knight. You prefer Gabby, right?
Yeah.
Gabby. And then we also have David Rooney. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, I want to start by asking you all, looking back on your season, how do you feel about, making it all the way to the NDT and making it to be a top 8 team?
I'll go first. I never thought I would be even close to being close to anything like this. I started a bit as a novice. I don't think I was a particularly good novice.
That's a lie.
And then, I don't know, it's just been a huge journey to be able to qualify for NDT twice and then finally compete and get an out round. So I want to thank Gabby for bringing me along for the journey. It wasn't possible without her.
I'm really happy. I had started debate like my sophomore year of high school in a really small Oklahoma town where there was no competition and no critical theory. And so I'm really happy I've gotten to do a bunch of critical theory and debate. Really happy Rudy's put up with me for a lot of that critical theory. And really happy that I got to go for one last pick at this tournament.
Hey, that's what it's all about. Well, let's turn back the clock then. You both mentioned, being novices. If you could go back in time, however many years, what piece of advice would you give yourself as a novice?
You can.
I think I would tell myself to debate what I want to debate and not debate what I think is good or what I think will win me rounds. Because our whole career has just been arguing things that are unconventional. I don't think there are many teams that argue anthro at all or in a non-racist way. Or I don't think there are many teams that run disability arguments that much, except shout out TJ. So I think it was just knowing what we do and what we think is true about the world gave us like a reason to debate that was more important than politics. Because the EXO counterplan was never that exciting for me.
I would tell my younger self to not be as afraid as I was and to worry less what other people think. Because obviously, like as a black debater, it's hard because people tell you not to be too loud or angry as like a black woman. And I would tell her just not to give a, care.
Don't worry about it. You can express yourself however you want here. Don't worry about it. Well, I also want to ask you, there has been, I know from being in college debate rounds can get kind of wild and funny and crazy, but also tournaments, they, apart from the rounds, they're a whole nother animal. So, you got any special memories from this year that you all want to share?
Oh, Lord.
We had a round where pretty much the only card we read was balloons are racist. And that was
Yeah.
at CETA because
Yeah,
they
that
were
was
making
around.
balloons.
Yeah. What are some other interesting rounds we had? We negated an AF about memes.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was
they
fun.
just did memes for the 1AC.
The one in C was white people aren't funny.
That was also true. They were white.
Yeah, we
I
had
don't
some.
actually know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some bizarre rounds that we've had. It's like too bizarre for us to possibly comb through and say like this is the most outlandish story.
We've had some weird arguments where people have like asked Rooney to leave. And
Oh,
I've
a
been
million
like,
times.
A million times,
A
and
million
I've been
times.
like, "Fuck you," and then that happened.
Well, you all have kind of hinted at this, but how did you all start debating together? It seems like you all didn't have necessarily matching personalities at first or matching ideas and arguments.
I think we
Lord,
match
we hate each
personality-wise
other.
really well.
We do.
Actually.
We actually do.
We actually are very similar people, and it's kind of scary. Which is why we're such good friends.
Yeah.
But in terms of debate arguing, Gabby did debate in high school and is very good. So I knew of her, but when she was coming on the Cornell team, I was a
That's
novice
crazy.
in college, so I was like, oh, this scary debater who's very good was
I'm
like.
scary because I'm a black woman.
No. She was just very good at debate, and I was like, damn. So we had debated different partners for the first couple of years, and then
We actually hated each other.
we actually really didn't like each other at all.
Because our coach kind of pitted us against each other without us knowing each other.
Yeah, and then we got to know each other and realized like, okay, maybe we can make this work.
And after one tournament of like
It
being
worked.
together, a very stressful tournament too, of all things, like we kind of bonded and we're like, okay,
This is a yeah.
we don't hate each other. They're pretty cool.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, that's a really great story. I know a lot of teams, either develop that friendship or they just become like, the worst of enemies that just work together.
Yeah.
Do you all think you could ever have debated together if you didn't click so well?
No. No, there were definitely, even as friendly and as good friends as we are, there were moments where it's like, I think we could have killed each other. Not even like a couple years ago, like this year, like this tournament maybe. But
This
just kidding, I'm
tournament?
just kidding. But
Dang.
no, I don't think we could have been as good as a partnership or even like maybe together if we weren't as such good friends.
Because partnerships are stressful. The NDT and CETA in 1 week is stressful, and you can't do it alone. So you need a lot of support. And if you're not friends, like you're shit out of luck. It's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got a couple other questions for you. I know that this has been your last tournament. Is it also
This is
your
my
last?
last tournament.
So you're both graduating, or at least you're graduating from the College of Debate. What do you got planned for the future? What are you gonna do?
Grad school,
Grad school.
coach,
Yeah.
judge, stay in debate.
Stay in debate. We'll be in debate for at least a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So we get to see your faces some more.
Hopefully
Yeah,
in the back of some
hopefully.
panels.
Back at some panels.
Fair enough. Well, that's great. Do you have any grad schools picked out already?
We're deciding between a few schools
Yeah.
right now,
Okay.
so we're not gonna. We haven't picked yet, so I don't know if we'll say anything.
Fair enough. I won't push you on that question then. And let me find. I had a question. Actually, we had somebody submit this question that they wanted us to ask.
Oh,
Oh,
Lord.
God.
Everyone
Goodness
actually.
gracious me.
So we'll see how you all handle it. This person is looking for advice. They're a newcomer to college debate. They will be a newcomer to college debate. They come from a very traditional circuit, and they want to know, what do you suggest to get better at college debate, or help them transition to college debate?
I think reading the literature you're interested in is really helpful, because it's one thing to learn about it in debate context. Like you can learn really fast, but people often read a lot of arguments wrong, or it's hard to understand the full context of the theories if you're just listening to it. So I would suggest reading a lot if you have time. And also watching like other people debate, practice flowing, practice understanding the arguments. Like last year's CETA and NDT finals are good rounds. A lot of people are good rounds to watch. Kansas KR, Oklahoma PS. Yeah, I'm right.
My,
Or
I think
technical policy.
I agree with
that's your
every-
thing too.
I agree with everything Gabby said about watching people. I think the final thing, if I could tell myself something, is don't be afraid of losing and getting just your ass beat constantly. Because the rounds in which I just got destroyed by better people were the rounds where I learned the most about debate.
I'd honestly recommend not staying in novice. It sounds like weird
Yeah,
advice.
push yourself.
Because of when I came to college debate, I told my coach I don't want to work my way up, just put me in varsity. And that's how I learned the fastest. And Rooney started as a novice and worked their way up really fast. But I think there's a tendency for some schools to, want to capitalize on novice and JV success. So they might hold you down there a little longer than you need to be for you to get more trophies, but it stunts your growth in a lot of ways. And while it's good in the interim, you're going to lag behind or you'll get rusty and things like
you
that.
need
So you need to,
baptism of fire.
you need to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
The baptism of fire. That's something I know quite a few people have gone through, and it's kind of scary at times.
That's good.
Yeah, it is good. Well, that's all I really had for y'all. I know you all have some fans out there. We had quite a few people watching y'all's debate when we streamed them. Do you want to
Lord.
say hi, shout outs to anybody?
Oh Lord.
Hi.
Hello
Thank y'all
to
for
the people who
watching and
watch us.
supporting us. Thank you for all the beautiful black women who have been supportive and are on the circuit killing it, or are nervous and are just trying. And thank you to Cornell.
Yeah, shout out to the Cornell people who've been watching our streams. And I literally looked at my chat after the quarters of Harvard, and I'm pretty sure I had like 700 messages in this massive group chat. So
Thank you
that
to
was heartwarming.
babies.
That was nice. Yeah.
All right. We love y'all.
Thank you all so much for being on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the round.
Thanks.
Well, that was Cornell KR. We will be back with another team here shortly while the debate round goes on next door. Keep tuned to Exodus Files. Well, we are back with our second team of the night. This is USC, that's University of Southern California BL, Aaron Berger and Hex Larson. Welcome. Thank you for being on.
Yes,
Yeah, no
thank
problem.
you for
Thanks for
inviting us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I was telling you just a little bit ago, you all have a kind of a fan base out there, and not many teams like at all have that. You were up there with like KUKR with the fan base. What does that feel like?
It's pretty surreal, actually. Never expected people would be interested in either, watching me debate or interested in anything I was saying in debates.
What?
No.
I'm glad that we have a fan
No,
base.
I am
because-
too. That's why it's.
And I'm not surprised because I think the work that we've been doing all year and the last 4 years have been awesome and invigorating and inspiring, and I'm really happy that lots of young students have been reaching out to me and telling me about the importance of the arguments that we have been developing. So yeah.
No, I completely agree with that. And when I started doing debate, I didn't think it could become something that far-reaching.
Mhm.
Something that things we were saying would affect people like that. I did not expect that to happen.
Well,
Yeah.
that brings up a really excellent point. I mean, and this is something I think you can probably pontificate on quite a bit. But it's like, what inspires your arguments, and what really, I guess, if you could see like an actual, there's always impacts to arguments, but like if you could make one major change with your arguments, like not change your arguments, but like see a change in the world from your arguments, what would you want it to be?
That's a heavy question.
It's all right. I know it's pretty heavy, and I know that you all debate some critical literature, so that's probably not,
Primarily, I do a lot of my argument development based on my own life and the things and concepts that help me live and live in the world. So particularly, for example, the topic on healthcare has been really instrumental to think about how my physical and mental health is implicated in the world structures that we live in, how I'm situated as a white trans person in the world, and how to rethink and reconceptualize health and care. So just every day this year, where's my head at? What am I struggling with? Where's my body at? What am I feeling? Has been very instrumental to how I do argumentative development.
Yeah, one thing we came into this tournament and CETA working on was just figuring out care as a thing that we've been debating about all year, and how I feel like it's been very under-theorized. And it's super instrumental to how you go about your life, because in every situation you're with someone, their well-being and your well-being are intimately tied. And something I think we've worked towards is figuring out how to think through that in debates about healthcare.
well, yeah, that's very interesting. There's a large divide in the community, I think, about like people that want to, include their personal life and see how the topics actually affect them, and people that don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that drive kind of pushes you more?
It makes debate sometimes difficult because it means that we're debating about things that are very intimate to ourselves, particularly with the AF and the neg that we've been reading on at CETA and the NDT about haptic healthcare, right? It's particularly been about how intimacy operates and how the world has trained us to care and to love each other and to love ourselves. And so, yeah, it's always, risky talking about violence that is intimate to the ways in which your embodiment operates within the world. So, but also important.
Yeah.
I don't want to debate anything that's not important to my life.
And that's one thing, that the desire to separate out the discussion of the topic from the way the topic is intimately related to one's life is itself one of the rituals that we've been talking about. And so there's that desire to separate out this healthcare topic, which is, in my opinion, something everyone is connected to, from the people who are talking about it. I think is ridiculously it's giving up an obligation that needs to be discussed, in my opinion. There's an obligation to be a healthcare scholar, which is like something that people say we're trying to do. How can you do that without bringing it down to the level of what we're talking about in a room.
Of
You know what I
life.
mean? Yeah,
Bring it
exactly.
down to the level of
Exactly.
life.
Fair enough. So it sounds like you both kind of enjoyed the topic this year then.
Yeah, I will say it was a good topic to have as my last one. I don't think of the 4 that I debated in college, I think this one was definitely the one I would have liked for my last. Maybe the criminalization topic would have also been a good one for my last, but I was really glad we started with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Our freshman year, the topic was about legalization, the marijuana and prostitution
Organ sales.
topic. Those were
yeah.
the most important ones.
Yeah, they were the only ones anyone would be about. Online gambling a bit.
But yeah, that topic was awesome, and then I also really loved the healthcare policy topic. The single payer apps are pretty terrible though, so those were not my favorite to debate. But hey,
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to like think too much about them. Like, you know, if everyone's saying the same thing,
But it
just
got
slightly
stale.
different.
no, I did think I actually liked that there was kind of just one affirmative though, because it did
Yeah.
mean that we kind of knew what every policy team, plan-based team, is going to say to us.
Yeah.
They're either going to say some things about disease or they're going to say something about disproportionate impact. So,
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I was going to ask you, you know, can you maybe talk to some of the kids out there, you know, about what it takes to be a top team?
A lot of energy. It is an exhausting process going into a debate tournament with an expectation hanging over your head and then trying your hardest to live up to that. You have to put in a lot of work, but you should also enjoy the process, because if you like what you're saying and you enjoy that process, then it is something that is both tiring but very rewarding. I don't know. It's rough to have that expectation of being, you know, people are believing in you, and then whether or not you succeed in their beliefs it's heavy, but at the same time, it is also very activating. You use that pressure to push yourself and push people you work with in many difficult but beautiful directions.
yeah, I think that part of the process for me in becoming a nationally competitive first-round team was just trust in myself that I can debate other teams that are making smart arguments. Particularly last year, I went through a lot of self-doubt processes of just not believing that I could make it to late elimination rounds, or just not doubt in myself. And so just I thoroughly believe that everyone, if you put in the work and you put in trust in yourself, that you can be a top debater. Just believe in yourself that you're just as good as these bitches, just as good as these people, just as good as these debaters that have been good for a long time.
Fair enough. Well, so we're at the end of your career now. Let's turn back the clock to when you were novices. What would you have told yourself, what piece of advice do you think you needed? What would you have said?
Lose rounds. I don't know. Lose a lot of rounds. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Then win some. But yeah, I don't know. I was really, really bad when I started debate.
Same.
I lost all my debates. Yeah, but
Be willing to push yourself in directions you don't think are necessarily the safest. So take argumentative risks, and even if that doesn't work out for you, you'll find out why. And from there, you'll gain a new perspective on it all. Don't silo yourself based off of what other people tell you is the right way to do something in debate. And take all the feedback that people give you and request it whenever you can get it from people who see you debate. Trust in your elders to give you what they think is the feedback that you want, and then integrate that into your debate. Because absent that, then there's no way to get better at it.
Well, that is great advice for anyone, I think. Well, let's take a little less serious question here. College debates get weird. I've been streaming. I've seen crazy stuff all over the place. What has been, I think, you all's favorite funny moment, either at a tournament or in round this year?
We like to take debates really. We like to have debates be fun when we're in them. whether it be between us or if we like the team we're debating with them. A specific debate though, there's so many.
Just all my awesome, amazing cross-examination
Yeah.
moments, to be honest. I love asking cross-ex questions. I love cross-ex.
Yeah.
So all the amazing times where I just ask questions and the other team looks ridiculous.
I'm the opposite. I love being asked questions in certain debates, but and responding.
Aaron is good at answering cross-ex.
And just because people, especially when they don't fully get what you're saying, then you can just kind of dance around in circles with answers that don't really answer the question that's being asked. And it's a very thin line to draw because sometimes judges will absolutely hate what you're doing, but you're just not answering their questions or whatever. And sometimes they absolutely love it. And that's some feedback like we got at the second round of the NDT. I don't think that one was streamed, but one of the judges was just like, "You're great in not answering questions."
Fair enough. Well, I got just one last question for you. For anyone that's coming into college debate, transitioning from high school or even a novice, what would you tell them to make themselves better?
I mean, I would refer back to what I said about when you're a novice and branching out to, because the people who are in college debate, I mean, there's a blend over from high school debate and college debate, but there are a lot of people who are just involved in college debate. And I would seek those people out who have expertise that, everyone respects, and ask them for help in either theorizing arguments or building up your confidence or whatever it is. But to acclimatize yourself to college debate, you really have to, I think, branch out to make friends and also make ties with people who have been around here for a while and know the terrain quite well, and therefore they can give you the top tier advice on how to maintain your endurance over a tournament, for example, or how to write a file that is competitive in college debate. Those are all things that people who are either on your team, if your team is well established, or on other teams, and just hit them up for advice and keep that dialogue going.
Yeah, I have 2 suggestions. The first is really is about prefs and just only take judges that you want to work with. Don't think that you are obligated to pref people just because they're a good middle of the road judge or just because they have certain associations with them. Only pref people and take judges that are helpful to your own argumentative development, like people you want to think with, people that you want to think through your own arguments with. Definitely recommend just thinking about, trying out new judges and rejecting judges that aren't working. Yeah. And then my second suggestion is do activities and get involved with whatever you're interested in outside of debate. It's really important that you do not devote your life to college debate because it means you can't think outside of it. Get friends, hang out, maybe join some other activities.
To get a perspective.
Right. Do some writing outside of debate. That's one thing that's been instrumental to my college career, is just having writing projects on the side to think outside of debate in order to get perspective on how to think inside debate.
And bring a fresh perspective to those debates.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I lied. I actually have one last thing to ask you. Do you all have any fans or anything you want to shout out? Say hi to anybody?
All the queer and trans people that support and love me. All the people in the world that push me to be better, to think harder, and to speak with more persistence and dedication.
Yes, completely agree with people who push me and people who enjoy watching or listening to our arguments. Anyone who's checked out our wiki and taken some of our sites, I'll give you a shout out. And anyone, if you're from Notre Dame and you're watching this, I'll give you a shout out too, because,
Awesome. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This was great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you all enjoy the round. And this has been USC BL, Aaron Berger and Hex Larson.
That's me. BL for life.
You all have like your own shirts even that
Yes,
say
we
BL.
do. We should have worn them.
Oh.
Oh well.
You know, not many people have those. I think OUPS also had their own.
Yeah,
So
no.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely recommend getting some team clothing items.
Something to rally around the flag with, maybe.
No, just something to look cute.
Yeah.
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 Fair enough.
Make sure it
fair
looks
enough.
good.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
We'll be back with somebody else pretty soon.
I'll take questions from the audience.
I'll take anybody.
I know.
Yeah.
That'd be so tough.
Well, here we are with our next team. Well, this is actually two different teams here. We have OUJS's Jay. This is Nico Juarez. And we also have Wake Forest's EF.
Shout out to the Hidden Leaf.
Hidden Leaf. I was going to ask you about that, actually. Which is Nay
I'll take
Edwards.
some more.
So, well, let's... first I want to start with this Hidden Leaf thing that you brought up. I've been seeing you walking around the turn with this, and I've been meaning to stop you, and it's like, did you get kicked out of the Leaf Village?
No, so this is what happened. So like a while back, me and Roberto were watching No Hero Academia together, and so we were just like, we should start watching a bunch of anime together. We were like, what could we watch? Let's rewatch Naruto. So then we were like, all right, bet. So we started rewatching Naruto. Then we started making our ballroom app, and so Kevin hates that we talk about Naruto. So we were like, what else could we name the house in the ballroom besides a Naruto reference? And Brent and Varun also started watching Naruto with us. That's Wake and Mark for y'all that don't know. And so we were like, yo, what if we just go into the NET, Naruto headbands like Akatsuki, just go straight like Rogue Ninja, and we'll just go like House of the Hidden Leaf and just like Rogue Ninjas. And so we were just like, 100% let's do it. It also is because Bobbio made a joke that like me and DeAndre, who from Louisville, WY, because we were partners in high school, that like we were like Naruto characters. I was Naruto and he was Sasuke, because now we're not on the same team.
Mhm.
And so we were just like the Hidden Leaf, obviously, because of Naruto, and we say Roberto's Sai, the fill-in for Sasuke. And so it's all just kind of like a big, weird metaphor.
Fair enough. Those are the best, though, like when you can get like cultural references in
Yeah.
there, and then just be like, okay, we're going to play around with this a lot.
It's weird because now when I judge in high school, people use Naruto references to make arguments.
I see that on your Facebook posts all the time.
I boost everyone's speaker for it, and I also think that every time a team has won the Naruto metaphor, they've won the ballot.
So go for Naruto.
Go for
Okay.
Naruto.
That's a good strategy. How do you feel about Dragon Ball then?
I'm more Naruto than Dragon Ball because I felt like Dragon Ball just got really like over repetitive. I was just like, Jesus Christ, like this just needs to end. And so I kind of stopped catching up with it. But when I was a kid, like Dragon Ball Z was like so tough. I loved it.
So you haven't watched the series finale of Super then?
No, I need
Okay.
to.
Fair enough. Well, I just watched
Please
it.
don't
so-
spoil it.
I won't spoil. I'll say that I think Dragon Ball Z finally broke its terrible habit of just being predictable.
Thank God.
And the final episode of the series is like, we're gonna break this trade.
Oh, lit. I'm gonna go watch it then.
Okay. I'm glad that it's gonna be a thing. Well, maybe we should actually talk about some more debate, I guess. You brought up that you were a novice in high school and you were partners with Louisville WY, or half of them at least.
Yeah.
I guess a 3-person team wouldn't work very well. So, take me back to being a novice. What got you all both into it?
This is such a weird story, dude. My high school debate story is so cringy. Can you go first?
I'll go first. What got me into debate? So I've been doing speech and debate for a minute. I think I started doing it like 7th grade. I did speech though. I did like acting and theater.
I could actually see that.
I actually-
the way you debate
yeah,
is so
so-
like that.
Right. I actually was big on doing like dramatic interpretation, or people be doing stuff like that.
I can.
Right.
Dude, what I forgot to tell you actually is that when I came into the hotel the first night, I got off on the wrong floor in the elevator and walked to like, I guess, are you in like 5'11" or something?
I'm like
that?
5'15".
Dude, I heard you reading the Poesis app before it was broken, and I was like, hey, Nico, like, what? Like, it sounded so good, and I was like, Roberto, we have a problem. Dude, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, no, I did a lot of things, and I also did OI, right, poetry interpretation, and so I did that for a long time, and I think I did that for 7th and 8th grade. I didn't do any debate at the time, and then when I got into 9th grade, I was basically just like, I guess I'll do debate. And I actually did LD first, which is, I think, actually, I blame for me doing Ks.
LD the Chico!
Right, I used to go for wild shit in LD. I think the most thing that I would go for, I started going for the Nietzsche K. Pretty
you were one of
consistently.
those.
Because resolutions in LD would almost have the word ought in them, you know? So I would just be like, I just make this observation, and I just be like, if I negate any part of the resolution, you vote neg. And I'd be like, I'd basically go for the Hume K. I would just go for like, you've listed a bunch of things that are desirable. You haven't listed a reason why that necessitates a moral obligation. This is Nietzsche, 93.
That is actually amazing.
Yeah, like people would just be like, organ donors would save millions of lives. I'd be like, that's awesome. I'm not going to contest that at all. I'm just going to go for I don't have to work on my organs though. I'm more than required to. And then I had someone who this was wild as fuck. I had someone who after I debated ninth grade was like, if you want to be good at LD, you have to get into either 2 schools of thought. This is a white man.
Obviously. Must tell you what you must do, right?
He was like, either Deleuze and Guattari or Bataille. And I was like, okay, so I cracked open Anti-Oedipus. I was like, this is bullshit. Fuck that. Started reading Bataille. And so I got even more into Greek literature and stuff like that. Eventually, I couldn't ask for the transportation topic. I was in 10th grade for that. I didn't debate space at all. It's like one of my biggest biggest regrets. Yeah.
Dude, my biggest regret is
That was my freshman year of high school.
my biggest regret was not doing the Latin America topic.
Oh no! So I didn't. No, it was you're right. No, like I cut an ITS off, but I know there were camp files, so I cut this file off myself, and it was like kind of stupid. It was like, we'll use veritable speed limits. Cars will have these little lasers in front of them that like stop accidents. So I cut a bunch of shit like that. Will solve megacities, because I found this evidence that was like, we don't transition to megacities in like 20 years, the economy will collapse or some shit. That was back when I was on my policy drawing.
Dude, that's so tough, actually.
But then my 11th year, I started going for the Darius actually coached me in high school.
That's
Not a lot of people know that, but
Really?
Darius actually coached me in high school. He was, because he was in Shreveport, right? He debated with Sam Gustafson, IOGL, right? And they were high school partners.
wow.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know enough about
Right. So then Darius went to ULL, right, in Lafayette, which is where I was at Lafayette High School in Louisiana. For those who don't know, me, Darius, and Sam are from Louisiana. And so basically, this person that I was debating with was like a year older than me. Somehow knew Darius, and was like, I got this person to coach us. And Darius was like, fuck this white people shit. And he was like, fuck that. We cut this. I started reading Give Back the Land. That was my
nice.
classic.
Good old,
Give Back the
hold
Land.
the line.
Yeah, actually, and I was like, I know shit back in the day. I was reading this like Sexton and 3 card that like definitely disagreed with what I was saying, but I was like, this card is totally in line with the negative. It definitely was not.
Updates to Sexton.
I've post-dated this evidence. And, I hate when people do that with K debates. Like, this is bullshit. But,
right. Updates and K is like
right. I low-key think that if you read a card from like 83, if it's good.
just as relevant.
Right, absolutely.
If anybody acts like Wolderson and 17 cards are different from like Wolderson and 3, you're just
you're wrong. Like, there's no real. It's called the paradigm has not changed.
Right.
The ontology of blackness has not changed in 14 years. We can chill. But like, yeah. So I did that. I did Latin America topic. We read this Indigenous Pedagogies of Place Af. It was really cool. Read Give Back the Land. And then my senior year, my partner graduated. Jerry still coached me. And he was basically like, look, Afro-pessimism is too good of an argument. He's like, you need to start reading it. And I was like, okay, because I know what the fuck Afro-pessimism is. So I was like, sure, this argument, maybe. And then senior year, I started doing anti-blackness. We read this AF that was like, because this is the ocean topic was my senior year. And
oceans topic.
And basically, we cut this Rodriguez. Dylan Rodriguez has this book where he like, for like good 20 pages, he's like everything that has to do with maritime technology is like based on slavery.
I know exactly
and so,
what you're talking
yeah,
about.
right. And so we read this AF. We were just like, it was one of like 3 or 4 genealogy AFs, but ours was pretty specific because we were like maps, compasses, like ports that are built today are all based on slavery.
Right.
And we basically were like, we read that concordance of love and evidence. It's like we can do a dream, something beyond the now, or break with something. And then we had the Huey P. Newton and 73 evidence.
God
we went
bless
for
the Huey. God
we were
bless
like
the
we were like
Huey.
anti-blackness will cause extinction, so you gotta vote AF. It's try or die to stop the empire of
Oh
America.
my God. Dude, did I tell you what I won doubles at this tournament on?
No, what?
AIDS outweighs Clash. A story that I can tell later.
Wild.
But
So we read that. I started going for Afro-pessimism. I finished reading Wilderson's book in like December of my senior year. It took me like 3 months to read. If you actually go to Amazon right now for Wilderson's book, there is a review of it by me.
Oh, really?
It's like one of the
Oh,
most.
I'm going to read it. The Juarez.
People will. You not know that West Georgia used to reads my my article in rounds.
That's hilarious.
They used to read it as an answer to anti-blackness.
That's
Because when I was a senior, I published an article in Rec Park that was a response to kind of Afro-pessimism from an indigenous point of view. 80% of that article is trash now, having learned more. But Georgia would read it. And
dude, so many people. I think like you have to take like 3 years before you actually respond. Because there are a lot of people that like jump the gun.
yeah, no,
It's
I
just like, all right, buddy, like, wait a
yeah,
second.
and like some of the things I say in that paper now, like I still think Wilson's low key wrong about some stuff, but like at that point I was like, no, I knew exactly I pierced the veil in this dense academic theory at 18.
Y'all don't got it.
And then I came to OU, and eventually ended up, I guess, here.
Legendary Nico Darius team is born.
Yeah,
Dude,
that was my second
I
year.
loved that team.
I
loved it. I used to watch y'all all the time. Those are my dude. I loved it. The fucking after had the projection and shit. I was like, wow, this is the next level shit ever.
No, it was really interesting to do those debate rounds, and I actually really disagreed with people. I actually learned that K debate is actually really educational from debating with Darius. I learned what the fuck sociology was debating with Darius, and I think that people underestimate that all the time when they do framework debates about how much education people
People
actually get from
dude,
doing
it's
K
so,
literature.
It's so crazy.
It's actually crazy, and
I was
I've
like,
learned,
bro.
and I feel like in doing that literature as well, I've also learned way more about history and the way that political institutions
100%.
are functioning right now.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And so I feel like people don't really understand. But that was my journey from novice to here.
So
Come on, it was yours.
So I didn't originally go to BCC. I went to the rival school at first. My first 2 years of high school, which is Baltimore Polytechnic Institute. I went there. In the 8th grade, my best friend, who was this girl from Venezuela named Katie Arevalo, her big sister went to BPI, and she was debating, and she was the captain of the debate team, and she was like, y'all should debate. I was like, whatever, I get to do it with my best friend, fuck it. You know what I mean? So we go in, that's when we get the Latin America topic. We start reading Venezuela oil as novices.
Hey, the Venezuela oil app that was far app. Look,
dude, it was kind of tough though. And so that happens. Then halfway through the year, then we were like, oh my god, you can read K's on the app. So we were like, all right, we're gonna read this app about the rate of Hispanic and darker Hispanic women in border towns in Mexico.
Absolutely.
Right?
The Maquiadoras apps were huge.
Yeah.
Was huge. That was
the Maquiadoras app. So we were like, okay, we're going all in on Latinx feminism. It's dip. It's dope.
I actually cut the little Latinx feminism K for Udnuff that year.
And so we used to crush. In Novice League, we were crushing people with Latinx. We thought we were the shit.
Yeah, dude. The real shame though is that it turned out to be more white feministy than it really should have been.
I've gone back and read the cards. I cringe. But
yeah.
So the thing is BPI in terms of debate was really underfunded, and I was more of a UDL kid, so I really came up in the Baltimore Urban Debate League, right? And
For sure. My school funded. I never got any money from my school.
Right. I was never.
I had to pay all my tournament fees myself. Had to pay the travel, etc.
So sophomore year, I debate Trey. We actually beat him, which is the crazy part, because BCC is the debate school in Baltimore. I'm not talking about McDonough. McDonough and BCC are the two schools, and so after my sophomore year, I go to my first camp, Georgetown, the anti-lab with John Sharp and Rayvon and Edmund Zagrin. So we go in there, and they're I have no idea what they're about to talk about, and I also did not know who John Sharp, Edmund Zagrin was. I knew who Rayvon was, but I had no idea what I was entering, and they're here's Deleuze and Baudrillard, and I'm like, oh, shit. So
I think it's hilarious that we really do have high schoolers out here reading Deleuze at 14.
So funny.
It's so wild.
Funny.
I actually remember reading Anti-Oedipus in freshman in high school and just being oh, I get some of this. I've attempted to read Anti-Oedipus 15 times now.
It gets harder every time.
It gets harder every time, and
because the more you know, you realize the more you.
This is why I got into Lacan, by the way, is because I read. Eventually, I was until I learned everything there is about psychoanalysis, I have no idea what this book is saying.
Yeah, dude. And so then during my sophomore year after camp, then I go to the Boodle camp, and I meet Chris Randall. Chris Randall, who is teaching a lab that I'm in his lab, we're practicing and stuff, and because I had been at the camp, I was kind of more ahead than the other kids that were in UDL. So he kind of takes me aside one day. He's like, bro, I don't really know you that well, but I think you're gonna be really good at debate one day. And I was like, thanks, man. I don't know. And so he's like, yeah. And so I was because I was starting to take debate really serious after camp and stuff, I was like, dude, maybe I want to go to BCC. And so I talked to him about it. He was like, yo, make the move. Like, just do it. Get there. You'll figure it out. I had no idea who my partner was going to be because DeAndre had a partner and they had already qualified for the TOC as sophomores. First black kids to ever do that as sophomores. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I'll go. Transfer to the rival high school, by the way, which is the oldest rivalry in like American public high school history.
Really?
Literally, we have our rival game at the Ravens Stadium every year. It's like
Damn,
ridiculously
that's wild.
serious. So like I go there and like they're like, who the fuck are you? Like, they're like, ah! Like, they were not messing with me for like the first semester I was there. And so I go there, I start debating, and like for like 2-3 months straight, I'm like begging Trey to partner with me because his partner had gone to another school, and so like he had been debating with one of his friends who like was okay, but like he was younger and like he wasn't like really as good as me. And so I'm like, yo, Trey, like yo, I was asking for 3 months. And like sometimes I would like give him a ride home, and the whole ride was like, bruh, like come on, bruh. I was like, I'm telling you, we're gonna be so good. Like just hyping it up. Like I had no idea.
Darius and I used to do that shit all the time. We used to like, before.
He finally agrees to debate with me. We go to the Bronx to debate. Instant, first turn. We're like, fantastic. And then like the story continues. You know, we don't break at the TOC that year, even though we get 4 bids. We go next year, get 6 bids, get to quarters, I think. Lose to Whitney Young, which is pretty dope because like they're the homies. Shout out to Eve and Gloria. And then after that, I'm like, all right, I'm about to go to Wake. I was originally partners with DJ. That didn't really work out. And then so like me and Rob were like, we had kind of been talking before like school started. We never really knew each other in high school. We just kind of knew of each other, you know what I mean? And so then after that, so like I really only started like seriously debating like my junior year. Like I only really knew like what to, like I was like, oh, like even then I was like that was my novice year. It was really my junior year. The first 2 years.
Absolutely. I went to camp for the first time the summer before my novice year, and I was like, oh, this is how debate actually works.
Right.
Because back in the day, I would be like, there are some judges that don't flow, you know? Like I was having judges that don't flow, and being like, so judge, you know what you want to be like, you know?
Yeah, right. And so really, so then like I got into, so me and Roberto got together, and I was just like, bruh.
You and Roberto debated in high school?
No, we never debated in high school. So
Oh, okay.
so we just knew of each other. We had talked a little bit.
Okay.
Like we were kind of cool. Like we just our personalities just naturally
Sure.
got along and everything. And so I was like, bro, like let's just debate it. We see how it goes. So I was like, he was like, I want to do my high theory stuff. I was like, I want to talk about black people. We were like, birth of the Black Deleuze app. And so we were like walked into Weaver.
Basically.
Yeah, but like we were reading like Donna Jones cards
Wild.
and stuff like that. Like it was like we were reading like Césaire poetry, like open like straight source Césaire poetry. Like just like we were
Reading straight from the
it was
notebook.
Like, right, dude. It was Amber gave me a book of Césaire's poetry, and so he's talking about like I imagine the land returning. Like it's all this like weird.
The new
stuff.
earth,
Yeah,
water is new earth. It's coming.
So we go into Weaver, and then like, oh, like we're doing kind of fine, you know. We had like a couple like cool teams like the first couple days. Then we had Baylor, and we're like, oh, we're about to get wrecked. Like you know, Baylor coming in that tournament, like they're supposed
This
to
is
win
in high
it.
school?
No, this is this year.
Oh, this is this year.
They're supposed to win the Weaver tournament. They just won the round robin. Like Greg Zoda's that kind of that dude. Like we were like, oh, we walk in, and Amber comes in 10 minutes before the round. She's like, here's what Moten says about debt and credit, and I'm like, okay. And then she's like, she gives like a 10-minute lecture, summarizes the article, and she's like, turn it into blocks, debate. And I'm like, okay. And it's like, we just like debate, and like somehow we end up winning. And like from then on, me and Roberto were just like, yep, let's do it.
Word.
Might as well. And so somehow we ended up here. I still like really have no idea how like any of this happened. Like it's still surreal to me that like all this stuff has happened because it's just like we were just like we. It was funny. It's like we would always joke about it. We're like, yo, we about to get a first round. Like we're so tough coming out like Weber like quarters. We were like, yeah, bro, we're about to be out here. It was just like weird that like all this stuff has come from there. And it's so weird because I was talking to Chris today, and we were talking about like that day we talked about me transferring to BCC. I was like, yo, Chris, like you really said like one day I was gonna be doing this, and like it's crazy that I'm actually like doing it. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So it's like it's a crazy feeling. It's so weird.
Fair enough. You know, I mean, I want to follow up on that. You know, you got a first round as a first year college debater, and I know from watching you over the last 2 weeks, I heard you talking about like you weren't always the best in college, and you came up quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
You've clearing at the NDT is no small task.
Absolutely.
So-
That was a grind, dude.
That's
That was
what-
the hardest
and
thing I
when
think
I-
I've ever done in my life.
Did you go to see as well?
No.
See,
yeah,
going
that's
both
the
to back
real
was
grind.
yesterday night, even when I lost yesterday, I was so gone. I could not I
Couldn't even
woke up this
interpret what
morning
you
and I was
decided.
like, wow, I've been hungover for 5 days.
That's what it does feel like. It feels like you're
Right,
just walking into
right,
every
yeah.
every morning
round
debate
you're
at
like,
the NXT.
how am I here? Like,
It's like you're just in there. You're just like, bruh. And round the first.
And I'm
they're
like,
oh
and also
my God.
I was just so joked out the whole time. I was like, how are there only 3 rounds a day? And I'm
Right.
leaving at 10 p.m.
Right.
And it
right.
feel like I did 5 rounds.
Dude, and the worst part for me and Roberto is that we only won a 1 round and a 3-0. Every other round we won was a 2-1.
Right, that's-
so
that
they,
was
every
insane.
round is just like gut wrench. It's like 2-1 for the, and we're
Yeah.
like, ah.
But then if you would lose on a 3-0, you know, you're like, shit.
Yeah. Yep.
No, for sure. And then, yeah, no, yesterday, I remember before we were negative against Cornell round 8, I literally told Jacob, I was like, I just need you to give me 2 full cups of coffee. Like, that's
Roberto's
right. Right, like, I'm just downing cups of coffee and, like, hoping that by the time the 2NC crawls around, I'm like, I am a person. Right? By the time the 1-8, besides when we have to get Cornell back-to-back, right, for doubles, I am literally just like, murder me. Just
kill me off.
Just kill me off.
Dude.
I don't even know
Try
how.
doing the ballroom every day, because like you have to do it with.
Well, that's what I'm
energy.
saying. That's
That's
the
the
new
other thing
poetry
about
app right, that we
KS,
have, right?
right.
Yeah, we
That's the
had
real
to
thing
like
about
really
KS.
had
That's
to
the
be
slept
out
on
here
component.
and be like, you know, we have this whole advocacy. Part of it is about affect and the way that you know
Right.
we relate to each other and stuff. So there's this whole
Dude.
thing with that. And I am still impressed that I like sound like I really care.
Right. Dude, I'm so because like the thing is like
Mhm.
I like walk into every debate just like upset that I'm really about to be doing this. Like I really gotta stand in front of a panel and like
Right.
I'm about to
Oh my
debate this
God.
framework. Like I'm not really with it.
Right,
so,
and you're just like-
but then the ballroom necessitates like I'd be like this happy kind of go lucky character like that. It's like it is kind of acting.
It's
like,
incredible.
I'm like this
I
happy,
actually,
go-lucky dude.
I think acting and debate are not that
Oh
different.
no, not at all. Not at
I
all.
think that the difference is line by line.
Yeah,
That's the only
and,
difference.
and honestly, it's kind of just like memorizing lines.
It is absolutely like memorizing lines. Yeah, I mean, in terms of getting here or coming up, I actually don't think I got good at debate till after the Loon. We don't do that anymore at OU, but you know, like I remember being pretty. I don't even know what it was about the Loon. Like I don't even feel like I went to the Loon and like
Yeah.
did a bunch of tech drills or even like read stuff that I really didn't know.
It's just at some
But
point
it was
kind of
it was some point that I
That's
felt
the
like
weird thing. It
just
just
coming
clicks.
together and like having this space right where I was like basically just doing debate for like 14 days
Yeah.
straight. After I left, I was like, wow, I just like know some stuff about
Yeah.
debate now.
It's so
And
weird.
that became Darius and I's motto last year was just read books. That was prep.
Yep.
Breaks just read books.
Dude, that's the thing that people kind of like both the book thing, but it's also just like I feel like it's so weird when like, and I used to ask this question to older people too, but they're like, "How'd you get so good?" It's like, bro, I really wish I could give you an answer.
I think it's.
But
I
it's
coach high school
books.
kids. And I just say read books.
It's read books, but it's also just like, you know, because there are a lot of people that read books and just can't translate.
But
it to
that's the
debate,
thing. You
know
got
what I
read
mean?
books and write blogs.
Right.
That's the two
And-
things.
But it's like it's also just like at some point all the pieces just click. Like for some reason, like one day
Absolutely.
you're just gonna be looking at your flows
And you'll be
it's
like,
just gonna
I got it.
all make sense. And then after that, it's just like whoever can like get that click every round. You know what
I
mean?
really found that what helped me a lot in high school because I was doing work then was actually just like I find if you use files that people give you, you don't get better.
No.
That's a
I
real
100% agree.
Apps,
If
snags.
you, yeah, it does not matter. You have to really be cutting your own shit out there, and
It makes kind of
And
sense
I
if like somebody's
appreciate it.
throwing new stuff at you,
Right.
but if you don't know the core stuff, no.
yeah, it won't. And just the creation of your own arguments, like writing the
Such a
blocks,
process, the
you know, it's gonna.
process,
It's
the
that just creating that master file for your argument is gonna make everything, you know, for you.
That's
really.
actually my favorite part about our coaching staff, dude. That's like my favorite part is like Amber ain't gonna write your blocks. Like Amber's gonna talk to you.
No,
So
and
you
I
gotta be
think
able
that's
to
and
do
I think
this
that's a
shit,
great
yeah.
pedagogical method. Like, I definitely make my kids write their own blocks first, and
Yeah.
then I'll read over them and be like, you know, this is why things
These are
better.
the
Any
changes,
changes
right.
you make.
Yeah, that's the
But
best
I
way to
mean,
coach,
when I was coaching some kids, you know, one of the things that I thought about right away was I was like, okay, we're gonna assign a book.
It
You're
also
gonna get
takes
one book.
the right.
This we're gonna have, and, you know, they're high school. I remember being in high school, so I was like, one book. If you can read one whole book on a dense academic theory a semester, you're gonna be above.
Right, that's
Like,
literally
that's-
what my kids right now reading the undercommons. I was
Right,
like, bro,
you know, OU's model when I got there, which I always really appreciated, was you know, whatever argument you want to make, we're gonna find the best version of that
that's
argument.
facts. That's
And I
true. They're
really,
so
and I
true
think,
to the team.
and I think
The
it's
team is
really
so
important to
true.
be crafting that. Like, you know, I feel like not to be really wild or anything, but I feel like there's just people who aren't doing some of the stuff
That's facts.
that Oklahoma has been doing,
That's a fact.
especially PS, right? Jasmine and
Dude,
Taylor are
they're
just doing stuff.
dope. They're
That's
ridiculous.
just
Those are the
not
hardest debates I've ever had in my life.
just not no one else is just doing that type of work, and it's due to the and you know that's all of them too. That's the beauty of that.
Yes,
Like it is not.
yes.
You know, like it is literally
They
all of
blow
them.
my
They
mind
do the
every
research,
time.
they do the reading,
Every
they
time.
cut these cards, they've been coming up with these strategies, and I think that you know it's really rough to be out here without coaches. But at the same time,
Yeah.
I think that
Dude, I just want to say,
you know, I'm immensely impressed by their ability to do that type of work, and I have found as people be cutting files and stuff like that, that OU has tended to have these kind of very original arguments. You know, like I started seeing settlerism in these camp files after Taylor and I started using that word. Like that's not before that. Sociogeny, that's all Darius who came up with that stuff and brought that into debate. Like people were not talking about sociogeny.
I actually want to put this on camera, dude. I love the OU team, dude. Y'all are so dope.
I appreciate
and
that.
Those are there are very, very few debates where I feel really intellectually engaged and challenged, and consistently, OU's been the ones to challenge me. My round against you, both my rounds against OUPS, when I debated Darius and Brittany, dude. Lost, win, or draw, I've never been upset whether I've lost or won.
That's very true of the
it's
weight
just
program
so
as well.
good,
I know
dude.
that definitely when you and I debated on Black Queer Morning, that was very moving for me, and I felt like, you know, obviously some of my debates against Charles have definitely been some of the most rigorous or testing in those areas, and
I think that's why, like, I've gotten so close with the OU team. Like, you know what I mean? Like, me and Brittany got super close just right after we debated.
Absolutely.
Not because it was just like, even though we were against each other, like, it just felt like, you know, our kind of personalities clicked because of how we were engaging each other. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like it's like real recognize real kind of. You know what I mean? It's like
Absolutely.
I feel like all of us, like, especially with the OU team, we all kind of recognize the type of like work and really the type of stuff that people just.
And I
aren't
want to focus
doing,
on that
you know
too. You know, a thesis that has I think it's quite simple, but it's very intimate to me as the longer I've been in college debate. And having gotten out of high school, is that debate is a job.
100%.
It is.
100%.
It is.
Especially if you're on
just-
scholarship.
right. Especially, someone asked me this year. They were like, you know, do you think you'll be coming back? And I'll be honest with you, I'm coming back for the scholarship. You know, the debate is a job. It's a labor that we all perform, and I think it's important that we keep up with that. You know, because just honestly, thinking through all that stuff, you know, I see the work that Taylor and Jasmine put in, and it's not just work. And I think that's important. It's not just work for you. I find the community
Come on, buddy.
really benefits from the intellectual gifts of a majority.
Was it Yeah. Love you.
Fuck white people.
Put that on camera.
Yeah, you know, and the work that women of color have been doing in debate is really just a gift for the community,
Dude,
and it's
facts.
and the problem is that it is so demanding on women of color in debate,
Yes.
people of color as well, but especially women of color.
Yes.
And I see I see the labor those people do, and I think that so often we do think of debate as I hear it all the time around. Debate is a game, and I think that's a
false.
mischaracterization.
That's
Debate
so
is
false.
Debate is a job.
Debate is a job.
And people are producing shit out here. People are
And it leads
reaching the
to the
diversity.
job,
Yeah,
too,
people are
like-
putting diversity quotas out for universities on pamphlets. They are winning trophies and recognitions for their university. Like debate is a job. That's what you are doing. And I think for sure, at the moment that you're on a scholarship, debate is not a game. Debate, you are a part-time employee.
I was telling Nico like how much we respect the OU team. Like definitely one of our favorite teams on the circuit, bro. It's like literally, it's like we've never like we were actually, you know, what's crazy? When we lost the debates at OU, we was like, thank God. Like we were like we will never be like we will never engage in debate like we don't want to win. Right, like
Yeah, for sure.
all of our, no matter friends, fro, whatever.
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
even if we want you to win, we're not gonna let you take the win. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
and
it's like we
It's
would
a little bit of relief.
right.
once
You
the
know what I
decision
mean? But
comes
like
out.
once that,
It's
because like you know, I was like thinking about the debate and stuff. You know, like thinking about what's happening. But then it's like right when the decision came in, like I'm just thinking, and it's like everybody gets that feeling that's right. But this feeling was like a little different. It was like I'm like scared of losing. I'm also scared of winning. Like you know what I mean? It's like Taylor and Jasmine have done so much.
Absolutely.
And I just felt like, you know, we have like 3 more years, you know what I'm saying? I felt like this was really their time to shine.
It is,
And
and
so it's
they
like,
have been
I really
underappreciated by the
respect
community.
that,
I think the
100%.
whole year, I've heard decisions. See, I've said it once and I'll say it again. I feel like a lot of times when some judges are judging Taylor and Jasmine, they think that their theory is like they think that they're 3 steps ahead of Taylor and Jasmine, and they're operating here. And Taylor and
They're
Jasmine's work
so
is
up
7 steps
here.
above where you
It's
think they
crazy.
are. So often talking to them.
Same with Darius and Brittany, same with you and
Just
Jake.
watching the layers of the way that they're making argumentation, I think is
It's amazing.
is incredible.
It's
the
amazing.
work that they're doing.
That shit they did,
honestly.
what they did this morning in the debate against us was really beautiful.
And
It was amazing.
I've continuously thought they have been underappreciated by the community because of that. And I think it's because they're doing something really radical. I remember when people were first breaking Afro-pessimism into the community, you know, people were not voting for it. And
Right.
and that's, And that's the sad truth, that there are people that have to lose.
That's how I felt
for the
about the
community.
onset side stuff when I started breaking it this year. I broke it, dude. I would break it and I would lose out rounds, and they'd be like, "I think you should defend ontology." And I'd be like, "Bro, like,
It's
what are
not
you
a-
talking
right,
about?
right,
It's
right.
not,
It's
like,
not
we're
even-
we're somewhere else." Like,
Yeah,
you know
not,
what I mean?
absolutely, and it's a labor that you have to like almost. It's weird, like you know, you're held to a much higher standard. I remember Nick Watts, who was judging me my freshman year. We lost around my freshman year on the alternative was too good. The alternative solved too well. So that if the solvency of the alternative was so strong, the permutation had to work. Because any problem with the perm, the alternative would have solved. I know, it's crazy shit. Right, but I remember having that, and I had another round of the same tournament where I had a judge.
Overwhelms the link. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. And I had a judge that tournament also told me the same thing. They were like, "What am I supposed to do? You know, vote for every little thing that might be racist." And I was like, "Yes, you're supposed to vote against every little thing that might be." Yes, absolutely. But you know, one of the things that Nick Watts told me in having those debates, because I was so furious. You know, I was a freshman. I was coming out of high school, and I was like, "How the hell, you know, are people saying these things?" And he was like, "You know, if you're a race debater, especially a Native or Black debater going for race, you can't just win rounds. You have to like annihilate rounds."
Can I ask y'all a question though? And I know it's supposed to be y'all.
No, you just go for it.
I
Go
just
for
gotta,
it.
like, dude, do you how crazy is it that like Q really won the Copeland this year? That's just
No,
dope.
I think it's fantastic.
so
I'm so
dope,
glad.
right? Like,
she absolutely deserves a Copeland.
oh
Q
my
has been
God.
putting in work for
it's
years.
insane.
Absolutely deserves the work that she's getting. And you know, I'll be honest with you right now, Q better win the finals.
Q better. Hey,
Hey,
you going for it? You got a 3-0 right
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
buddy.
Q
Something
absolutely
we
better win.
definitely spoke about was who should get the Copeland versus who would. Now, I think unquestionably from
Absolutely.
everyone I ever
That's
asked,
all we were
everyone
talking
said
about.
that Q should get the Copeland. The only
Question is
people
she
were
would.
there was ever a difference of opinion was whether or not she would.
Would
Right.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
that's crazy that
That-
like
we have to
have
have
that
those
conversation.
conversations.
It's like,
Exactly.
what is enough? Like, you know what I mean? It's like there's no team that's just closing out every tournament. You know what I mean? But it's like,
But Q
really
literally
out here.
was, right?
She
Like,
was
I mean,
really out here winning
like
everything. Finals,
like
like-
basically every tournament in the fall, Q won.
yo, yeah, it was
I
ridiculous.
think she
Oh
only
my
lost.
God.
I think her and Katz only lost like 2 or 3 tournaments the whole year.
Yeah.
Like only 2 tournaments the whole year. Did they not win
Yeah, and
the
then like
tournament?
the round robins, but we know how those work.
Yes, and that includes like the swings, which they didn't go to.
Right,
Right.
Dude, if they would have gone to
It
the
swings.
swings,
It would have been.
I would have been so
I
sick,
remember-
bro. That was the time to shine. That was the time. I was like, this open for everybody. That was it. I was like, thank God.
Yeah, and I mean, and the Kansas squad, you know, their research teams,
So good.
the research they have is really, really impressive. I remember I was talking to, who was I talking to? I think I was talking to, I don't remember who I was talking to. But I was just talking about how, you know, how big of a difference having that type of coaching staff really is.
Yeah.
You know, coming from OU and, you know, not getting into all that, but, you know, we don't
Yeah.
have a very strong
Right.
kind of card-cutting coaching staff or anything like that, you know. And I was, you know, thinking about all these strategies, your ballroom AF, Q's AF, right? The AFs that Charles and them were breaking, you know. USC's AFs, they would break at every tournament. You know, they break a new AF every tournament or something like that. And I was like, wow, you know, like, it's just literally, the coaching staff makes all the difference. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't even make a difference in technique, but sometimes, you know,
It's just
if you're
having
going to
other
be
people there.
if you're going to work part-time, not at debate, you're going to be a student, you have some other stuff that you're trying to do, just like live your life.
Just filling in the
Gaps,
gaps.
and
right.
then also having debate, having that staff that's like, look, I'm not gonna make the argument for you, but here's like 200 cards, right? So I remember back in the day when I was last year, you know, I remember having a debate round, and I was my argument, but at one point someone was like, this is the link to anti-blackness. Here it is. Like, we've cut the link for you already. And like, still on me to articulate that link, apply to the debate, but just having people who are doing those type of
And that's
that work for you.
that's
is-
why
is-
that's why like whenever me I feel
makes all the
like
difference.
I feel like that's really why like me or Roberto like before rounds and stuff we try to make sure people are good. I remember we were at the swings and before Darius and Brittany debated Emory FG, like I came up to them, I was like, you know, what are y'all thinking about? They're like, we kind of have like this like they read this movement stuff. We want to figure out how we can get the movement stuff and use it against the app. I was like, well, I was working on this protest stuff.
Word.
Right, and I was like, let's talk about how we out giving the cards. I was like,
Absolutely, and
let's
I
figure out how
really
to do it.
appreciate that about, especially, you know, amongst black teams, and there's not a lot of native debaters, obviously, in the debate community, genocide, but, but you
This is
know,
our native spirit.
there's, for the native people in the community who, you know, I just found the familial kind of atmosphere that's very much like supportive of trying to make sure that, you know, people of color, especially black and native people, are getting, you know, support and care and
Because I
working
think
to
for
be so
us,
important.
I think that's why, like, like for them it is a game, but for us, it
Yeah,
isn't,
I don't
you know
think-
what
I
I'm
don't
saying?
think
Some
about it
stuff
as
for
a
us
game at all.
transcends the game. Like when I'm helping y'all out, I'm not like, oh, what can and can't they say
That's it.
against us? I'm like, I'm more like, let's make sure
Sure.
they win, and we'll figure out that when we get there. You know what I
Right
mean?
now, I
Like,
feel that way all the time. Like, you know, like some of these things. I remember I was thinking even just about debates that I'm gonna have to run into. You know, I want people to be winning, and if I get to a round where like, dang, you know, like I would rather, you know, that two people of color in the finals and they have to hit each other, than
Right.
like we have to be having
right.
this kind of repetitive cycle of some type of
One
people
K
of color
team.
K team and this policy team. And this is what you know, last year people on the team were saying. You know, they're just not. We came to this indie team. We're like, they will not let two people of color be in finals. Like the indie team will not let. And I always
They
think
knock us off quick.
Right.
I remember me and Trey was joking about this after that round with Michigan GW. I was like, bro, they saw all them posts about a black woman every quarterfinals. They was like, nope.
They're like, nah,
I was like,
get there.
yeet.
This
Like,
was
that's how
Jasmine
it goes.
Stidham's line, hold the wall.
Right,
You
that's
know,
how
they're
it
like
goes.
framework, get
That's how it
these
goes.
motherfuckers out of here. Like
Right.
get these
And then-
black and native people out of this debate community. And
Yeah.
I think, and you know, I was recently talking to someone who was talking about like there are so much more people of color in novice debate
Right.
than there is in open,
Right.
and it's because of the way that the community works. And I think that people don't talk about that enough. People always like to. I think that everyone likes to talk about.
And
how,
that's why that's why I really like Nell. Like Nell kind of represented what it would look like to really, at least like, you know, like what it would look like to just have a more inclusive, like Nell, Coco, both of
Yeah.
them are like, what would it look like for us to have a different orientation to debate? And that's why I appreciated Louisville and Iowa so much.
Yeah,
It's because they really changed the game this year with the way that they were doing stuff. It's like, what are we actually going to do when it comes time for us to face the people that we're talking about?
Right,
You know
and
what I
it's-
mean?
And those conversations are rough, right? They're definitely at the intersection of like, does debate deserve my labor? I think about that a lot in those conversations, especially conversations asking for a lot of intimacies. You know, like what does debate like deserve? That I
Right.
can
What does
give
it
like,
give to me
like,
that
you know,
I need to get
And
it back?
you know, and I recently, I think I had written this somewhere. I was writing an argument kind of about the academy, and I was thinking about this argument. I said, you know, I've done a lot of work for debate, but I'm not so certain debate has ever done work for me.
Right.
You know, and
It's weird though. It's like it's
It's
weird
so-
because it hasn't.
it like on one hand, right, I do think about all the relationships
Right.
and that I've made through debate and the opportunities it's offered me. But I also ask at the same time, you know, like what has been the cost of those relationships, and you know, like no shade at all to Cedar or anything like that. But I was really, you know, thinking about this, like the People's Tournament, you know, at the same time, like how much of my people and our people, you know, like
Right, how
aren't
much of our
here,
people are really at the tournament.
really at the tournament,
Yeah.
and like what does it mean for
And
us
which
to be
people are at the
the
tournament and which people ain't? Because
Right.
that's also
So-
separated by
by rate, and
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
you know, like
Politics.
yeah, lots of
absolutely, like
politics.
to say that there has been a white flight from CETA is an
Oh,
understatement.
yeah,
Absolutely right.
understatement, dude.
Like people do not want to be out there, and,
And it's
and I'm
crazy.
thinking about
It's
know
like-
people
it's like-
refuse to debate Iowa GL, right? They're not going to debate
Right,
these.
yep.
Even Binghamton had that team that was doing the balloon animals and the Mario Kart
Yeah.
stuff, and you know, like I still think that those debates are really valuable, and I think that people
Because
really
it's not like they never do it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like that's part of the performance, and there's a whole
That's
other
whole
theoretical
thing
back
about that.
behind it.
And I feel like people really underestimate that, and that always leads me back to the question, like, does debate really like deserve my labor? Like, does it work for me? And like, did I form relationships here that maybe I missed out relationships in other places? Like,
I think
think
what's
about that
really
sometimes.
answered this for me lately.
Opportunity cost framework.
right?
Opportunity.
Capitalist like
What's really kind of helped me answer this question a lot is like, I've kind of reframed the question from like, not from what has debate done for me, but what can I do for people that are going to debate in the future?
So
You know
I
what
think
mean?
about that too. Like, what type of community am I leaving in the wake, right? Of
right,
that
right,
thing, and you know, 100% shade. You know, I think that some of the teams that have been shaping what native debate means is really dangerous and really anti-black as fuck. I've seen some, and anti-native as fuck, and it's been disappointing to see that. You know, I've spoken to some native people in the community. You know, like it's wild, really, that Give Back the Land was first introduced by white people, right? Like that's a white people argument, is Give Back the Land. I know very few
And it's still
native.
here.
It's still here, and I think it's just the worst type of
And it's like
engagement with native literature. I feel as a whole, like it's completely not engaging, and I think and I think that it just leads to the worst conclusions.
And also, how I feel about people that like, especially like, so like my thing is like this. It's like, I feel like we, as everybody in the community, could just be doing so much more to help kids that I feel like were a lot like me before I went to BCC. You know what I mean? Like for me, it's like, and quick shout out to the North Star kids for sure. So this is the North Star kids are dope for a couple reasons. A, their support of me and Roberto this whole tournament has been insane. They've watched all the streams. They literally message us after every round, how you feeling, like how you doing, like you're like just giving me so much energy to keep going. And it's like I feel like we also have a job, because it's like I remember being those kids. Like I remember being those kids that like I used to watch all the NET live streams. I was flowing because I wanted to get better. I wanted to
Just
keep
posting on Facebook,
Right.
being like, is there a stream today?
Right. And it's like I feel like those not just stream. I think streaming is important. Like if you don't want to get streamed, for sure, like do your thing. I think that we should stream at more tournaments, just period. Like I think it
Absolutely,
should be
at national tournaments we should be
I
streaming
think it should be a
more, absolutely.
consistent
I
thing
think
that's
so.
at a lot more tournaments.
I think so as well.
But like, anyways, even outside that, it's just like I feel like we could do so much more to reach out to those kids. I feel like ever since I've gotten to Wake, I've tried to do like my active best to like reach out to as many black kids as I can. Like all y'all apply for the scholarship. Like let me
I
know
know,
your
that was-
information
and
so I
that's-
can talk to my people.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean? All
and kids
stuff.
that I coach who tell me they're interested in going to school at OU constantly, I'm like, you know what, I know Stephen Ellis, the program's going through a shift right now, we need new members, like I'm going to be able to hook you up with scholarship money if you want to come here.
Right.
And that's making sure I'm doing that
And we
labor
need
is
to be
really
doing
important to
so
me.
much
And
more.
also just shout out to the Urban Debate League, all
Shout
of them,
outs.
all of them are just amazing work they're reaching out to communities because in some senses, right, I do worry about obviously these questions like what does debate deserve, how are we in the academy and things like that. At the same time, I think about what it means to have kids go into debate leagues and what it means for them to encounter this material and if there's anything, I don't know, that I learned a lot and I became a much different person because of debate. It is no exaggeration to say that I'm a radical leftist and engaged in protest work or activist work or intellectual labor. It's not. When people ask my political, I just say I'm a radical, which I think is the only real answer. But that is all because of debate, and all the things I've learned about history, about the world, are because of debate, and that's valuable. And it's and at this, and I try to make sure that I'm doing that for my kids. I think Shannara actually had a thing a couple of years ago. She might be wrong about that, but we're just talking about how much K-debate especially really forces you to be thinking critically.
I saw one of the few times I got to really meet DSRB in high school. 'Cause it was like weird. DSRB was one of those people that was like always like looking, like watching me and Trey. We never really got to interact with her as much as we wanted to. But we went to this New York round robin, and that had like Agatha Angelou speaking there.
Wow,
Hartman
really?
spoke there.
Damn,
Ben
wow.
Carson was the one that put all this stuff together.
He has put on more than one of those kind of
and so
events.
we were at the round robin, and he had the lecture series event, the conference right next to it, and so DSRB spoke at that conference.
Oh, wow.
And she was like, all my kids stand up. Like we all stand up, and she's like, I will bet you that any one of these kids, like pointing to like high schools, like me, Trey, Eve,
Brooklyn Tech
the
kids.
Brooklyn Tech kids, Nish, Ryan, Gloria, all of us. And she was like, I will bet you, give me a second year grad student, I bet you that studying your literature, I bet you they'll explain it to you better. And like
Yeah, and
in
that's-
front of
I
like
have-
Agatha Angelou, like these people, and like I'm sitting there mind blown. These people are like, yeah, you're probably right.
No, it is crazy. Like I said before, it's crazy that we have like high schools that are reading Duluth and Guattari, Beaujard, Wilderson, Sexton.
Boy,
like-
that's this boy. The boy. I told him how we came to the Black Deluxe.
No, but that's wild, right? Like, I walk into 4,000 level classes where people are like, "Whoa, hold on now, we're getting a little heavy on the Duluth or whatever," right? Like you bring in, and I've Taylor and Jasmine and I, obviously Darius, we all end up in similar classes at times, and bringing in the level of theoretical work that we do, right? And in those classes, oftentimes you do receive this kind of like, what's going on here? And I've had more than one. Professor be like, that's a graduate student level analysis,
And like
As early as I was as a
from,
freshman.
like 3 years
That's what
ago.
I'm saying. Like, early,
yeah,
it's always been like that. And debate.
You gotta watch me and Roberto write essays.
No, absolutely no. Look,
So I'm taking this class called Ethics and Agency.
Uh-huh.
We're reading straight up Aristotle.
Oh,
So my midterm is like writing a 6 to 8 page essay on like what do you think, what are some things that like either Aristotle is bad at answering.
Uh-huh.
And so obviously I'm like, oh, we going for Afropass. The order would be one off. So Aristotle has this little, like these tiny sections where he writes about friendship. And he's like friendship is about the ability to like lead others and shit like that.
Interesting.
And he's like, the master and the slave are friends. I was like, the order would be one off.
Yeah, he has that whole thing, right, where he's like, there are two races of men, those who are free and those who are slaves. Right? He's like, yeah, like, I mean, yeah, Aristotle's a racist.
Aristotle was a race.
Or what's, and Darius and I have talked about that, what's really wild is that even if he like wasn't a racist then, right, like if he like, because racial slavery obviously was like not,
right.
that paradigm hadn't really been introduced, he's like definitely a racist now.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's, like if
Even
anyone
in
now,
modern day
right,
applications,
right,
it's
like,
just
no,
like,
it's
nah,
impossible,
what's up?
it can be disentangled from the world that we live in now. Right, like if Aristotle wasn't a racist then, he's a racist now.
Yeah.
Like, and
That
just-
reminds me of when I used to go on your wiki and the first tab you see is God is a white race.
God is a white racist, man. That is my favorite argument I have ever read. No doubt. We beat Michigan last year. They were so mad because last year was the climate change topic. So
God's a white racist.
these policy teams would be going for, you gotta stop climate change because it's gonna hurt minorities the most. And we would go for, yeah, that's why it'll happen, because God wants to hurt minorities the most. And we beat Michigan on that.
It's just inevitable.
We would go for theology outweighs.
Theology.
Yeah, because
we used to go for Nietzsche.
back in the day. But,
Tell them, wait.
So when I used to do LD, I used to, how they have the word all the time in LD?
Yeah.
So I would just go for basically the Nietzsche Hume K, and just go for, you've described a bunch of things that are desirable, but you have never once described why I have a moral obligation to do them.
Roberto is such a troll. It's like Roberto is like,
Right.
Roberto's
And I would just,
so annoying.
no,
with
and then
this.
I was always
He's
debating in
so
front of these lay judges, right? Because I was like in a small local circuit. So I would just be like, Judge, UTIL says that you should do the most good for the most people. But you have a house. You don't need a house. You could have sold that, given it to some poor people. It would have maximized happiness. You telling me you're an unethical person because you own a house? Because you won't sell everything you own and give it to the poor? False. This is the example of moral slavery the app phrase. This is Deleuze in '83. Right? Like this is this is results right. No, right. I would just go for like I go for like
we used to call apps boring. We drew all these Kierkegaard cards about how being boring was the root cause
Oh,
of all
the
evil.
worst.
Rob, you fuck with the labor theory of value?
I fucking like it.
So we were debating yesterday. So Rob sometimes like gets just really annoyed when he knows people don't know what they're talking about, and so he just is like, I'm gonna end this debate now. So we go, we read the ballroom maps and doubles. Frederick and Cap, obviously. Rob's like, let me just ask 2 questions before you start. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. So we're flowing. He's like, I'm like, all right, don't make it too long. He's like, all right, bet. He's like, all right, the Cap K. You fuck with the labor theory of value? And they're like, what? And he's like, you read the Cap K. Do you fuck with the labor theory of value? And they're like, what is that? And he's like,
No,
Marx's fundamentals. He just starts
No,
taking
we
us
used to
through
go for that shit last on the climate change. We used to be like, so how do you feel about neoclassical economics? And they'd be like, that's not relevant. I'd be like, you have read Cap and Trade Af. It's incredibly relevant. Do you think it's true? Do you think that we have the Homo economicus? And they'd be like, I don't think that. Would they be like, I don't think the Af defends that? And I'd be like, false.
That is incorrect.
Yeah, that's incorrect. No, that was used to be the art. I cut this whole ass book that was like, that was just like the whole book was just this K of neoclassical economics, and was like people are not rational, they don't have foresight, and they don't like,
Turn the key.
Behavioral economics question mark.
Right, exactly. We would read this K, and people would be like, cap and trade, companies will do it because it'll maximize profits, and I would just go for like, companies don't do that. Companies don't maximize their own self-interest. They're actually really terrible at making decisions. they'll make things they'll make decisions that'll lose the money. Or I like it when people read that Johnson 5 evidence. I don't know if people read that against you.
The liberal economy one.
Yeah. Well, it says right, but that card is actually a defense of the death drive, and that's what that card is. And we would just go for, if this card is true, then people won't do the F. Like this card says that people don't act in their best self-interest. That's why we're radically free. False.
Actually, after you're done, I have a huge question for you.
Okay, and so we would just that would be Jacob and I's argument. We'd just be like, if you've read this Johnson 5 card, one, it says that psychoanalysis is true, and two, it means that people just don't do the F.
Nice. Okay, huge question, huge pivot for both of you. I kind of want all three of us to answer it, because I think this
I'm
is
about it.
super,
Sure.
super, super important. What do you all think that, like, we can do to change the future of debate?
Ooh, that's a great question.
That's a hard question, I think.
You don't gotta go first.
Huh?
You don't gotta go first.
I'll
You're
think
the one
about
who
it.
came up with the question. You got something to say?
Yeah,
I can go, okay, I can go. Let's decide the order right now. I'll go first.
I'll go after you if you, or
You're gonna finish
unless
this off,
Roberto
Rob?
really
I'll
wants to go.
last. Rob, your answer would be damn good to finish this off. And you're white, so it's
Pressure's
like,
on, pressure's doubly on.
If you out here like, yeah, we just gotta defend the line. It just turns on me on camera. But I think there are a bunch of things. So I think the first is that I always think, and I'm kind of gonna frame this through intervention.
Oh, I hate you.
So, and no, but it's like, I think
Yeah,
it's
it's
kind of
true,
a
it's
true
true,
thing.
it's
So it's like intervention. So this ties back to our AF argument, but whatever. So it's like intervention, the idea of doing work from the community within, right? So it's like, I feel like because there is this divide that exists between like, you know, there are a whole bunch of divides, but you know, especially the K divide, policy divide, whatever. I think it starts with, you know, what, as like a K group of people, especially like identity-based teams, like I think the promo teams are a different question, but especially like the identity-based teams, right? How we produce.
There are not that many promo teams.
Right, yeah, not that many
There's
promo
like-
teams,
there's
like,
like two or three,
you know what I mean? But with like especially identity-based teams, I think a lot of it is a question of like how we relate to each other. So like
Absolutely.
for instance, it's like I feel like me and Roberto have been talking about this a lot lately, which is that because you know like this is the last Q debate we'll ever see, the last Natalie Ness debate we'll ever see. We saw
Yeah.
the last Charles debate. There's about to be a whole new
Yeah.
like era of debate that kind of starts next year. You know, there's kind of this hard
Absolutely.
reset that's about to get hit. And I feel like that's such a grand opportunity for us to do something
To redefine some
so
stuff, yeah.
good. You know what I mean? And so I think it starts with like starting things off right and just being like, bruh, like we need to have better ways of doing this. You know what I mean? In terms of like making sure that we don't let debate and like what the sometimes negative aspects of it are overcode kind of our ability to do great things for each other. You know what I mean? Like I think it's like we allow such like small weird shit to like, you know, kind of divide all of us into like really dumb kind of just bad ways of how we can relate to each other. And I think like we all just need, especially for like the younger kids that are coming in, you know what I mean? Just show them that there's a different way to do things than what they've kind of been seeing, you know what I mean? So I feel like there's just a much more better way. I think it starts there for us.
Sure.
Right? Because I think that then
Do you have like things that you think people should be doing?
So I think a
specifically,
couple
like, in
things.
line with that?
I think A is just that like competition is important. I think that competition is good because it allows us, you know, learn more things. All the T arguments without the T. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Competition.
No,
competition is a cool thing, right?
I mean, low key,
good.
that's what we would go for.
Right.
Iterative testing is good for revolutionary
Right,
stuff.
right.
It's not,
And so
it's
it's
not
like,
necessarily
yes,
bad.
but I think that competition doesn't always need to determine, right, like what we're doing. What I was saying earlier is like when I go to help out, you know, Brittany and Darius, I'm not going to be like, could they read this against us later? I'm going because I care.
Sure,
You know
sure,
what I'm saying? I think we need to start putting care more before competition. And I think that kind of like promoting that kind of ethic and how we all think about this stuff, you know what I mean? Because like people let a lot of just petty, jealous, stupid stuff, you know what I mean, get into it. And there are a lot of other serious issues, and I think that like also having a kind of care over competition issues would allow us to resolve when the big stuff comes up just better, healthier ways for everybody, you know what
Sure.
I mean? Because it's like I feel like the small stuff always gets snowballed into bigger stuff, and then it just kind of hits everybody, you know what I mean? And then we all end up just kind of in the hallway like, I don't know if I can talk to you, you know what I mean? It's like that. And so I think then, kind of after that, it becomes like we have to start, so I think that like Q has done something like just legendary this year. I think that we need to kind of encapsulate this moment and use it as momentum for starting to push from the kind of stuff that you were talking about, which is like you have seen that like someone that has put their all into this
Yeah.
and has shown you that there is an alternative model of debate that is good and that can really, really, really
Absolutely.
educate people, produce change, and even change people's minds. Q has changed a lot of judges for a lot of other people. I know we wouldn't be able to prep a lot of other people of like Q, Charles, all of them have come before us and shown like,
Sure.
you know, them a different way to understand the debates. And so it's like we need to use that to kind of enroll ourselves and to kind of like routing out the other stuff. You know what I mean? That's what I kind of mean. I think it starts inwards and kind of moves outwards to how we then start being like, well, before you was against them, then you was against them, you was against them, but now you got like all of us. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
a different type of thing, and I think it saw it like, for instance, like it was weird. I think the crazy thing is like after we got eliminated or whatever, like the crazy thing was like when there was a black person in every quarterfinals, like no matter what school you went to, everybody was going to him. He's like, you need anything? Like,
Absolutely.
I sat with Cornell, I sat with Louisville.
Sure.
Anybody, I told Q good luck, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so it's like, Oklahoma PS good luck, told them if they need anything, let us know, all that stuff. It's like being able to just get to everybody, because it's like for me, it's like once I'm out, I'm just rooting for everybody black. I don't care. I'm rooting for everybody black. I'm rooting for everybody that I know is down. And so it's like, that means that I think that like those kind of like moments are really, really key for us, because I think it's like, it's weird that like this is how the world works, but I feel like it's like when you can just extend an open hand to somebody, like it does so much for not just to extend it back, but to show other people what that looks like.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I think.
Yeah. What can we do to make debate different? A couple things I think actually. And I was thinking as you were talking, I was trying to be like, what are the practical, like if I was like, here are the, what do the policy teams want from you? The parameters argument, if you will. What is like, boom, the first I think is a little bit what you're talking about. I think we need to be doing file sharing. And I think we need to be doing the whole year. I think that we do what you're talking about a lot at CETA and the NDT.
Right.
That is not happening at, Weber. It's not happening at UMKC, the first tournaments of the year. It's not happening. And on some real talk, right, like these white policy teams are definitely doing that against us, right?
100%.
And we just need to be doing, like, and, I think we should be doing that work against them as well. And we need to be understanding that, if anything, right, what I think this year has even more solidified is that, there's this divide, there's this happening right now. And, I'll talk a little bit about how I think that divide maybe could be crossed to some degree, but at the very minimum, right, there needs to be this almost like you're talking about ethics of care that I think is realizing, not everybody's going to have the same resources, not everyone's going to have the same literature backgrounds, right? And, I think that we can just be file sharing. Like, I know that people have gotten me links to apps that I was going to hit. Shout out to Elijah Smith as well, by the way.
Elijah's one of the main people that I
he's
learned
definitely, he really helped me prep for a team yesterday, and doing that, and I thought that was amazing, to me. I don't have coaches that do that for me, so I was really, really, thankful. So I think that's the first thing. I think it needs to be happening as early as the first tournaments,
Yeah,
like just being like, hey, what is your topic links to
It
these?
needs to start happening when we're all prepping for the
That's what I'm
NDT
saying,
too,
for sure,
not
right.
when we just get here.
Right, exactly. Like, and I remember, obviously, like maybe I'm probably not gonna maybe give my 1 and C of Nay to somebody else,
Right,
but
right.
there's no reason I'm not giving my 1 and C to Georgetown, right? Like
Kentucky
Kentucky
VT,
VT, right? Like there's no reason I'm not sharing those 2 and C files or link extensions to the app, right? It's like, well, and and I think that almost resolves a little bit of your like this tension sometimes between competition and care. It's like no one's gonna read the biobanking bad link against me, right? Like I don't,
Right. So
I'm
it's
not
like, why
defending,
not?
right?
It's
So
like,
like, what do I say?
And it's also just like, I understand sometimes you want to save your new stuff, but some people don't even got access to the old stuff.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And so then I think the second thing is I was kind of on the fence about this after having a really rough experience at Kentucky this year. But, after kind of seeing some stuff that Amber was talking about and was replying to me when I posted about it, I think we could eliminate MPJ. I think that's a scary like thought to a lot of people, but I think we as a community need to be talking about it. Because on one hand, obviously it gets you the judges that you want to get, but on the other hand, it makes sure that policy teams get to insulate themselves from never having to have a black or native critic in the back of the room that's going to be like, hey, this is like fucked up, right? Like this is not our, and you were talking about this exposure, right? And obviously one way that's been talked about that I think is somewhat true is, like you would get to strike 33% of the judges at the tournament, and then the rest is that, right? Or strike 50% or whatever.
Yeah.
That's
a system where we get the strikes.
That's what I'm saying. You get some strikes, and then the rest is. And obviously that doesn't resolve all of it, but it does mean at some point, like people are gonna have to get people in the back that maybe they would normally wouldn't get, and I think that's good. I think that's something.
I'm also down for more panel tournaments.
I'm also down for more panel tournaments. I think it is a huge.
It's a huge
labor and work
Logistically, that's
habit.
not possible.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible in those tournaments, but I do think that at minimum, like this would. And maybe we just need to try it out at some more tournaments. It's obviously like something that's going to have to be tested, worked through iterative testing models, right? How we engage with that.
It's like, what do these kind of tournaments look like when there is no FPJ?
Right, and yeah, exactly. Like,
And
and
we-
just
and then we wanna
and
apply that
honestly,
model to
and
all the
Kentucky
tournaments.
had it this year. They didn't have MPJ there, and I remember I was really upset. I was like, wow, I'm getting these terrible judges. But one of the things that Amber pointed out to me is that Kentucky almost did it deliberately. They made sure that they had mostly policy judges, right? So it ended up hurting K teams way more than it helped. Helped them, and it also just kind of further insulated policy teams from having to ever engage that. So I think.
Which is crazy.
Just-
Shout
that
out to
would
Q for winning that tournament.
Yeah, shout out to Creed for winning. That's crazy. And so I think that's, but obviously, and there are ways that we could talk about how to diversify the judging pool, what that really means, how we. But that's that's a whole something that I think needs to be discussed. I think the third thing that I would talk about, and I would urge people to do, honestly, is stop reading framework.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I am.
Well, I think that would require some AF changes.
It would require some AF changes a little bit, but I also am not sure. And I think in high school it's different. In high school it's probably different. I am somewhat persuaded by the small schools argument in high school. I am somewhat persuaded by that, but at the same time, I definitely think in college when people have backing in a program and stuff like that, I think I'm kind of an asshole in rounds. And one of the arguments I would always give to competitive equity is my neg win-loss rate is pretty high for having never read framework.
Right. Same.
Right. Like,
I've only
and
read
so,
it once this year.
and I think that framework often becomes a way for teams to not materially engage staff. And I think that one of the things that Jacob and I have offered as generally our counter interpretation is we'll defend single pairs bad. If you read a single pair counterpoint against us, we won't perm. Right? I know that someone was telling me that Coco and Brooke kind of do the same thing. They're like, look, we're going to say single pair is bad, but if you want to read the single pair compound, we're not going to be like, hey, we can also do that. No, we'll just take you up on the debate. And I think that especially in a time where our civil institutions no longer function the way that policy framework debate authors think they do, right? Like clearly, people reading cards from 13 about civil deliberation, that doesn't exist, right? Like if that was maybe true, and it was true only for white people in like the 80s or 90s, it is certainly not true now. And I think that framework becomes a way for us to not really grapple with how we're going to respond to these things. I think a street tee is a good alternative to framework.
Right.
I think that's a
I
good.
think street tea. Okay,
You
if the ass can be the ass, we get street.
Yeah,
I
that's what I'm
also
saying.
think topicality might be a good alternative insofar as, like, for example, on this topic, I think one of the big divisions between the sort of critical literature was the sort of care versus insurance literature. I think T insurance is viable against a lot of like critical affirmatives.
That may be
versus
true,
framework.
and I think, and this comes back to the kind of same thing with MBJ. It would be something we need to talk about, but I do think we need to seriously consider getting away from framework as an argument as much as possible, because this is an argument that Jacob and I started making this tournament, is that teams will say framework's not racialized all you want, but Black and Native debaters have been telling you that's racialized for like years now. That like you just gotta trust, and this kind of comes back to like.
And that's exactly what Q just won semis on. It's
Right.
like, you say it isn't, but it is.
And you gotta, and this is one of these things that I think is relevant, and having these discussions is, especially with, white people who are trying to really be like, what can I do, and be down in these instances, is sometimes you won't believe something that someone tells you, and you just gotta be like, they're probably right anyway. Like, there are experiences that people have that I cannot relate to, and I cannot verify, and maybe so different from my experience that I'd be like, is that like really true? But at some
And
point,
that's why I think performance debates are really good, because they
Yeah.
always start from the premise of your performance is there's some truth to your premise,
and
we could question how we get out of that.
absolutely, and I think that's, and I think that white debaters and white coaches need to just trust people of color and debate that framework is racist, that it's been racialized, and I guess the last thing that I might say is, I think we just need to change the way that when we have these kind of KVK debates, especially when people like call our AfroPass or two AfroPass teams or two Blackness teams, or whenever we're having these obviously kind of similar like focus of identity or even these things, we just need to change the way that we think about what competition means in those contexts, and I think that
In
maybe.
what way?
I don't know. I'm not sure, but I feel like
as in like no perm type context, like is there like
I'm
something
not sure. I'm not really sure on this one, but I'm thinking about the like you were saying earlier, what Iowa has introduced in the way that they kind of do those debates at times, right? The kind of conversational relations that happen in those things, and that brings me back to like, does debate deserve that labor from me? I don't know, but I do think, or maybe it needs to be that when, structural theories of being like, fuck that shit, it's definitely plausible in most cases, but maybe when we kind of have already, due to past debates have already agreed that structural performance is there, the app should have to defend some way of grappling with or working within that structure of pessimism, where like we assume pessimism is true, and I guess that's maybe my final thing that I think I would do is a commitment to maybe an ethics of relationality, and I'll define what that means a little bit to me. I think is that structural violence is overwhelmingly huge, and I don't want to make a compulsory claim. I don't think like anyone has to do this, but I do think realizing that structural violence means that we, and by we I guess I mean those who occupy this kind of undercommons of debate and the university and all this, we are constantly hurting each other all the time, and we need to find some way to grapple with that. And I think that having a commitment to realizing that people will hurt me, and I have to still find some way to talk to them and work with them, and not forsake them, right, is important. And I obviously don't mean to pathologize or like talk badly about those who are like, I don't want to do that labor. I'm not, and I don't think so at all. But I do think it's something that we need to maybe realize has to be reckoned with at some point. At some point, we need to do something about finding ways to be
And I
forward
think like
with each other.
a key thing that I think me and Nico would both agree is like we're not saying like everybody gotta sing by like kumbaya.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. That's what I'm
you know what I mean? Like
saying.
people gonna have problems, but it's just
It's
like
like-
there can be much better ways of dealing
And
with
with those-
that
with
than
the-
what's happening.
than what sometimes happens now, and I think that low key was somewhat what the NDT last year was about. About how are we grappling, that the community is not grappling with the rift in it very healthily at all. So I guess that's how I would say debate can be better. Roberto, you gotta.
I think both of you also have a lot of really great things I could obviously reiterate. But I think something I want to talk about a lot, and I think it's been especially relevant this year, and something that we've been talking about a lot with almost every debater we've seen in the tournament, is I think we need to change the way that we write topics. I think that's super important. I think
Wow, that was a good.
I
One.
did
That
not
was
even
a
say
good
that.
one.
How did I not think that? That's-
Give me a high five. Look at you. This is why you're my white man.
Wow.
So for those of you in the stream that don't really have a lot of context, essentially when we pick topic areas, we don't really know the way the topic's going to get written. So this year, the few topic areas were Russia, Israel, healthcare,
We had labor.
labor.
I think
there was a racial topic. There was
There was a police brutality topic.
police brutality. There was like a nukes plus topic.
Mhm.
I think that's pretty much it. There might have been a couple other ones, but the point was that I think there was like a pretty large differential in the amount of people that voted for the healthcare topic, sort of expecting a topic
I
that
did
was
too.
actually about care and the way
Yeah,
that
that's
things get delivered,
absolutely what I thought it was going to be more
like
about.
resource
I was excited for that too.
resource displacement in communities.
Yeah, I was thinking about conversations about health, how we do health in
I was
communities.
thinking about my care ass being topical. You know what I mean?
Word.
And the topic committee came out with a series of written resolutions that we got to choose from. I think there were 7 of them. There were a few that like had certain specifications. There were a few that had like different terms of art. There were a few. Was there a healthcare one in
Yeah,
the?
there was one.
There was one healthcare topic in like the 7 that got released.
It was
And
number 2.
it was number 2.
Yeah, and it lost out. That was the top 2
It
was
was,
the healthcare
it was
topic.
national. It was the United States federal government should substantially increase healthcare in the United States.
Yeah, and
and
that's
it was one of the first ones that got voted
That's
out
what I
during
voted
the elimination process. And so basically the topic got funneled into health insurance really early on, and then once we had to pick from the health insurance topics, people decided they were going to pick the most broad one, even though there was only one app.
and that's also true. Like
They didn't want the
there's
subsets debate.
Right, there's not that many apps that you could even. So I don't even think it's that
I think it's
educational.
just like we need to find a way to better democratize the topic.
Absolutely, who's writing these topics? Who gets to talk about
Who's
them?
writing? And it's also just like how votes count. You know what I mean? 'Cause there's almost like kind of like a gerrymandering in debate. Kind of
There's a little bit, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
It's like Wake Forest,
like
we
a
have a lot of
redlining
power.
kind of, you know what I mean? It's like, it's weird. It's like, there has to be a way that smaller schools can get
Commit
bigger
some type of impact on that, and I'm not sure what that is, but I definitely agree with you, Roberto. You're right. I was thinking about that, and I remember last year we were talking about that. Someone was like the 2-part topic. Do you remember that discussion that was happening? Was like it would be national health insurance or like you'd have to do the radical.
When was that? Stop.
Yeah, and obviously there were a ton of problems with it. I remember being like, this does literally nothing for K teams, like. But I do think maybe the effort is okay. But
'Cause
also
the
at the
problem
same
is like this is the weird thing, and this is like more of like a theoretical thing, and like we all know this, like power operates through exclusion and inclusion.
Absolutely.
So it's like they're kind of like they don't. I just don't think they get it. It's
Right,
like,
and that
you
was
don't want to like.
The health insurances topic was definitely an attempt to include K debaters. That failed horribly.
It's like,
Yeah, I think it was not.
It's like we don't need you to be like, here is a K topic. We need you to isolate wordings of the resolution that allow for some forms of creativity that you can still have the framework debate on because you're gonna have it regardless.
Yeah, and that was the thing that I was thinking about as well. Like that topic, I thought, especially WIMSATs, had only really developed a way for framework teams to almost hypercharge their framework arguments to be like, come on, we gave you something, and you still didn't do, threw you the bone, and you still didn't take it,
And I was talking to Jared about this today. Actually, Jared and I did it
really?
today. And I was like, because me and Roberto are both really, really hoping that just praying to God. We know this probably won't happen, but that the gun reform topic will come out. CV is writing the topic paper. I want a bi-directional gun reform topic.
An increase gun control. I think
Increase
bi-directional
or decrease.
the policy teams would never go for both.
Uh,
They'd never go for both.
But I think it
They'd
would
be like,
so
the ground
good.
is too large, and like honestly though, why doesn't T substantial or whatever like solve this question? I think like the state's kind of plan like would overcome. Like I feel like
They
there's
would still
obviously
read the
checks.
same arguments. It just
Right.
means you have to cut them on link cards, which really isn't that hard.
I mean, and what policy team would say, yeah, we should increase the amount of guns? Like, you have to go so far right with that argument to
They
actually.
would do it against other policy teams for the big
They would
impacts,
do it.
though.
No, they would do it against K teams.
Oh, yeah, they'd
the
be like-
paradigm apps would be give black people guns.
Right.
Yeah.
But my thing is
That's
like
what
these
we
are,
wanted to read.
But my thing is like these are those that would be super
But
debatable.
that would be
That'd be
an
so
interesting
debatable.
discussion as well.
That'd
And
be
I
so
mean,
debatable.
obviously,
Backlash
black
stuff.
nationalism.
There's
the
obviously-
obviously gun club in Texas, shootings in Texas.
yeah, there's obviously these discussions to be had about that topic, and you're right, it would be interesting. I just don't know if they do it.
Probably not.
I
That's
don't
why
think
it's a
so.
hope and a dream.
That's how. But I remember being surprised though. Remember last year, Labor almost won over healthcare. It was
If Labor
so
had
close.
won and we had to have the Wilderson v. Cap debate every round.
But here's the thing. I actually think that there is creative. HEMA definitely has shown that there's creative places to be going with the Marks K. That is not
We've shown that.
identity politics fractures the class.
Yeah,
movement,
we've been going
he's-
for Carceral Cap though.
Right,
Capitalism,
and I
for
think
sure.
so. I think there is, and obviously Wilderson himself comes from a history of Black Marxism. I think that there's obviously large Black feminist critique of labor. Obviously,
Yeah,
there's a
but
bunch
I
of
guess-
gender studies on labor.
I guess labor could have been
disability
played on
studies
a
has a
lot.
ton. I think could have been an interesting discussion about what is labor. Who do we deal with.
Metaphysics,
I think it could have introduced an interesting discussion about how debate is labor and what that means. What it means. I think an app about debate as labor would have been particularly
That
interesting.
definitely.
I
would
think an app
see-
about
I could
workers'
see
rights would
Oklahoma
be
PS writing
interesting.
a sick app about labor.
Right, that's what I'm
Sick.
saying. I think there was a lot of, but we were surprised. I remember we put healthcare above labor, thinking that labor was going to get knocked out really early on, and we were trying to be strategic about it. And yet, it had ended up being, in the top two, and it lost out to healthcare. So, I don't know. I feel like maybe voting needs to be democratized amongst maybe people. Obviously, I don't know. Every method is going to have some level of exclusion to it.
I
but I'm
will
trying to
say
think
that the
about-
community, when we were talking about like file sharing and all that, we do talk about which topic to vote for.
Oh, we do talk about that. I remember
That's
before
one thing where
for
I
healthcare,
remember
I
we
was
were
hitting
talking
up other people, being like, "Hey, what are people thinking
What
about
are we
these
doing,
topics?"
right?
And
We talking about
Facebook
it.
chat
Facebook
messages,
chat
G
messages,
chat.
and
yeah,
Facebook
kind of creating an
groups and
idea
that
where
stuff.
teams were thinking of voting for. Because I remember we were unsure. We were like, "How are people thinking about stuff?" Because low key, we were like, if a ton of people were going to vote for like one topic, like maybe that would be the better topic to go for. And I don't remember what it was, but we were talking about various things. We were like, what about how does the nukes topic interact with some of the stuff? Obviously,
I want
Yeah.
to talk so bad.
Omalate.
right? The omalade, the old omalade. I used to read
the
the
Gums Roach stuff.
yeah,
was
the
fantastic.
gum stuff. Obviously,
New gum
throw it
stuff
back
that
to
just came
Cato
out.
in '93.
Right.
Like this.
There have been some fun debates.
Right there, I think there is discussion to be had about nukes in those contexts, and honestly, I'll be interested to see what kind of comes up this year. I know that people have even talked about a non-USFG actor topic. I think
That's
that-
what
that
Jared
was,
was
that was
talking
what I was
about.
going to say. A few things that I think we should definitely be considering is that, I think that the topic paper process is actually good.
I do. Oh no, I agree that the topic process is probably good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the second thing is I think we should consider non-USFG actors, and that could even be so far as to just be like the United States.
Right. That's
That happened a couple years ago.
yeah. That happened a few years ago. I remember.
It didn't work out well, though. I debated that topic, and everyone was just like, yeah, the United States is just the USFG.
Right, and so it's obviously people have debates about it. I know a while back when stuff was going down with IR, people were talking about like other countries as the topic, Brazil, a Brazil-centered actor topic
would be
or
dope.
like a EU-centered topic or something like that.
It's also just
I mean-
like, I feel like Jared was like, I was talking about like the gun reform stuff. He was like resolved gun reform should be substantially increased and or decreased in the United States.
Yeah, and
Multiple
I think Tiffany Dillard Knox's dissertation talked about that. She talks about the passive voice as a particular potential avenue in these type of resolutionary questions that we ask. And I think that people really fear debating generics too much because I think that one debate that's often already become generic anyway to some extent. And two is that I think that it misunderstands that good debates will always be a race to the top of specificity.
Right,
and
it'll always be
each-
about specific application of
applications,
generic
yeah.
arguments.
Right.
I really don't really know what arguments is generic and which ones
I
aren't.
mean, like,
It
and
seems like every argument.
Right,
It's like if you
every argument
you don't really
begins
win
generic,
right?
right?
Every argument starts
begins generic,
generic,
and people who contextualize that argument better
It's like
to what's
generic. Like
happening.
generic is used to demarcate arguments that have been read for a long time, which really
Yeah.
doesn't have anything to do with it being generic. It's just historically
Right,
relevant,
like
right?
even the econ dissad can be very specific. It's a
Right.
very generic
The
argument.
politics is that,
It's
the
the
scenarios, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like the way, even some ways people go through, like they're creative.
And I feel
ways
like
to
people
do
always
this
feel
is
like
kind of
they
fun,
have
you
to
know?
read, I don't know, like they'll have to read the generic link. I mean, having debated pessimism for a while now, yeah, you almost always read the generic link. It's about contextualization,
Right,
later
I go
speeches,
warn
process.
like,
Yeah, several debates you'll start off generic and contextualize it as, and honestly that should be the point. If the literature is doing literally all the heavy lifting and contextualization for you, then what type of education are we producing? I think that's a big thing. I always make my kids give practice speeches with no cards. I think that we rely on that a little too much. I think that the turning of generics into turning of generics. If I read more than 2 cards in the 2NC, something went wrong.
Oh my god, if I read more than 2 cards in the 2NC, I expect Roberto to slap me.
Yeah, like something's wrong.
I'm such a slow
I
boy.
I introduced some cards. Now I read the Winter and Wolderson evidence on framework now in the 2NC, but that's it. But I think I think we run away from that too much. And honestly, I think it's just based on tradition. People are like, what am I going? But like honestly, like you'll rebuild your back files, and like the education will be more valuable. Like I was talking to some people when the Latin America topic was being debated in high school. I was like, wow, how much more powerful would it have been like Mexico, Cuba, or Venezuela should something, right? Or like Mexico should do this, or
Yeah,
That's
Right.
a throwback. That was my freshman year of high school.
We were
right.
talking about that a
We
little
were
bit
talking about that.
earlier,
That was my
Dude,
junior
I
year.
would love to debate that topic. If we could get that topic in college, oh my god, I'd go.
The Latin America, and I really liked that Latin America to some extent required a greater discussion about how governments in other countries work, because a lot of the stuff that we talk about is super U.S. centric, and we can have a debate about whether or not that's good or not, but it definitely is true. For those of you, the season's over. Theory and Event just released a new issue on Black feminism and Afro-pessimism.
Right,
You should
go read it.
You should be reading the
Dope-
articles. It's
dope
amazing.
articles,
It's an
dope
amazing
articles,
issue.
dope
But
articles.
the
Tiffany
introduction
broken at
article.
this tournament.
Tiffany
the
broke the
wikis.
Tiffany King critique. The
Oklahoma PS was reading cards from it.
Oh,
Gotcha.
they read one of the Tiffany King cards against us. Yeah.
And in that article, the introduction is talking about Black women in Brazil and the way that Afro-pessimism's theorizations.
That's part of the
are
act that Q broke in semis was
Yeah.
the Willoughby and Harold article.
right. As part of the argument was that Afro-pessimism is sometimes lacking in the context of Latin American context, or at minimum that it needs to be applied more specifically, right? And so I do think that having international topics like that can be good. And I also think that the international topics that we have sometimes end up still somehow recentering the U.S. Like I debated the military
war
basis
powers
topic.
topic.
I debated the military. Yeah, war powers. I debated the military basis topic. Always kept coming back. It was never really about like how countries in the Greater Horn of Africa really worked. It was never really about how Japan was working.
It was about like U.S. intervention. Good,
U.S.
bad.
intervention. Yeah, U.S. intervention good. Forced posturing of the U.S. military. Like what can we do to? And so, and I think that having something that's like, and I like that on the economic engagement topic, people were like, Venezuela's oil companies are doing this, and this is how Venezuela. All right, right. Or people were like, Cuba responds this way to the embargo, and I thought that was a really productive discussion to have about like. And I remember cutting a lot of cards about indigeneity in Latin America and just like how different and at the same time similar it is in certain contexts, right? Or like, what does it mean to be native in these contexts in Latin America?
Right. There's probably some great.
And maybe it's because I'm young. Maybe because I'm a bit optimistic about debate's ability to sort of adapt, and be resilient. But I think I'm really willing to take these sorts of risks in terms of the way the topic gets written. I wouldn't be mad if there wasn't a USFG actor topic next year. I wouldn't be mad
If it doesn't go well, it doesn't go
Well, and that's what I'm saying. If it doesn't go well, it doesn't go well.
Debate's a very
Debate will
resilient
carry
activity.
itself.
Right.
I think people that are just like debate's dying are just so wrong.
I
so statistically,
statistically it's wrong, and if debate is dying, it's that the way that
That-
people used to debate is not happening anymore, and that's good. Like
That's good.
things have changed.
Right.
They're changing nationally.
It's like debate. It's not debate dying.
Yeah,
Debate reborn.
debate is is changing, and the responsibilities of what you have to answer are different. And that's kind of comes back to this framework argument that I was talking about. You know, like outside of maybe reading Street to you, like if you really think that the only argument that you have against Afro-pessimism apps at this point in debate's history is framework, then you're wrong. Like that's just wrong. It's not. This is not the impossible research burden to have like, oh, what is my strat against Indians? The CAPK exists, right? Like, and so I do I think that the way that we write topics needs to be understanding that flexibility. I have, maybe I'm grandstanding, but I honestly think that debate programs across the nation are pretty well funded. Coaches are pretty good in general. And people are going to find creative ways to interact with that topic and create new strategies.
There's obviously disparities in that funding. I feel like there's definitely,
Of course.
I feel like
He's
there's definitely
from Oklahoma.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
He knows what's going on there. I promise
Yeah,
you.
like, of course, obviously, right? And I mean, I came from high school with, like, no funding, right? So, like, I of course. But at the same time, I have been impressed with the labor that people do. And, I read the same 1 and C every round. So, obviously, I'm not saying it has to be 20 different arguments that you need to be prepped for, right? But I do think that just having something new like that, debate's going to adapt and people will find new ways to do it. And having debates about like what maybe the like Asian Economics Council should do, or like those questions I think are really interesting, and I think that they really do force us to ask our normative arguments in new ways. Like, what does it mean? What does settler colonialism in the Americas mean for Asia? Shit, like what does the transatlantic slave trade really mean for Asia?
also
Right?
The China.
the China topic.
The China
really
topic,
showed the
yeah.
limits of that. It took it.
The Afro-Orientalism case that people were breaking, I thought were really interesting. I remember
Yeah.
looking at some of those.
There was also faults too. I think the
There just
first
wasn't.
time.
There just wasn't enough literature.
The first time someone, the thing is that the literature was hard to find because I think the first time all year that someone broke an affirmative about like intra-Asian colonialism was us at the TOC. It took all year for someone to be like
false, actually.
on the
Christine broke it first.
on the
Christine was going for she broke it like at the beginning of the year. Her whole argument was about colorism in China.
No, it's not about colorism. It's about the way that like about actual Chinese policies
Oh,
about moving
okay,
populations within the country.
Okay, that makes
It's like these are policies that were like passed, have like been studied, and have been analyzed by all of these people, right? And there's this huge base of literature that I was looking into right before the tournament that nobody had looked at. That like there was never a migrant workers affirmative, even though there's like millions of migrant workers in China whose
I
labor
would
is
have
being
loved to debate
exploited.
that.
That was those.
And I think, and that's what I'm saying is why I think a non-USOG act would be productive, because I think it would force people to have to do that type of
Definitely.
research, right? Because otherwise, the easy thing is, well, my field of literature, my background, my back files are all in the context of the U.S., so I'm just going to recenter that as much as possible in an international context and do that. And I think having that new topic would be really great. In fact, I don't know. I think that would be awesome.
The question is, do you think that having a non-U.S. act in the context of another country, do you think that the sort of perspective that you were talking about earlier would flip, where like people would make sort of topics about other countries about the U.S. or no, how to on like Latin America topic, there would be like really nice apps talking about like the reaction Cuba would have, what Venezuelan oil companies were doing. Do you think that people would go in that very same direction to recenter the U.S.?
To some extent, yeah, probably. I think it for me is less maybe about like, is that impact, like, are people going to recenter the U.S.? Because I think that's kind of inevitable, right? Obviously, it's just a question of like, what does it allow us as a community to do?
Right. The
And
starting point still
has to be different. And
Yeah.
I also think that these apps that aren't going to center the U.S. are going to be competitively harder to beat. If you have centered the U.S. in all of your literature, you're going to have to shift.
Chains are going to be harder to
Yeah,
prove.
you're going to have to shift to be able to win, and that's I don't know. I think that iterative testing of that argument was going to require you, if you want to win rounds, to be able to
Definitely take
understand.
some research.
Right, and it's going to take some research. You're going to have to do some stuff, and that was Darius and I's always argument. Switch-side debate doesn't require two-sided debating, but it does require two-sided thinking, and you're going to have to be able to think about how do people respond to, that type of stuff.
I love Mikey.
Yeah.
Well, I had some questions I did want to ask you, but you all answered many things I was planning on asking you.
Sure.
I want to turn back the clock for you all, because I know you've talked all three of you extensively about, what we need to do to, help the community, help these younger debaters out here. That's part of why we actually started this company, Access Files, is to literally just give money to UDLs, right?
Sure.
But from your perspective today, being a top NDT debater, what piece of advice would you give yourself as a novice?
Oh, damn. What advice? A novice in high school or a novice in college?
Oh, that's a good question. You can choose either.
Okay.
I guess I'm gonna go back to my novice self. So,
High school novice?
It's like I'm gonna go back to high school. Read lots of books. Lots of books. Don't ever limit yourself to like one literature base. I feel like that's one thing I suffered with when I was younger. Like I was like, I'm good at AfroFest, so I'm gonna only read AfroFest and the Aftermath and everything in between. And I feel like that always stopped my potential from like what the stuff we're able to do now. Like me and Trey were always just so scared of being able to just, run out.
Really interesting.
Just always, I'll just say always, never limit yourself to like, this is my lit base, to always expand even if you're talking about the same identity, because so many people are writing so many things.
For sure. Advice I would give myself as a novice. Obviously I'm going to co-sign Nate's thing about don't stick to a certain literature base. I always thought that my strategy in high school, and I guess still is now, is to, if you know the other person's argument better than they know theirs, then they know it themselves. It'll get you a long way. So I read a bunch of K and policy literature bases that are not arguments that I ever read. So that's for sure. But I think, I guess two things I would probably tell myself. The first is that maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I haven't figured out debate correctly. To really be more willing to accept and try new things, especially in high school. In high school, I was really afraid to I really thought that I had some shit figured out that I don't think I did. And I think coming freshman year of college, I felt the same way. I was like, I've perfected this argument already. And that's just wrong. And I think sometimes, and that's just because I tend to be arrogant sometimes. I think, and that definitely was true in those instances. The second thing I think I would tell myself, and I think I would give, or maybe it's just what I thought really did it for me, and it's obviously not the only path to success or anything like that, but it's just to realize that debate takes time and that it takes labor and that you got to be patient, that you're gonna have to, and that whatever form of debate you want to do, whether it be performance, technical line by line type of stuff, policy, identity case, postmodernism, all whatever divisions we have in the way that we think about how to do debate, it is going to require a commitment to figuring out all the possible advantages of that, disadvantages of that, and coming into it. And having shifted sometimes to doing performance asks and things like that, it's just vastly different, right, than reading a bunch of cards and going for a specific arc. And there's some benefits of doing that, and there's some benefits of just I think, as much criticism as it gets, there are some benefits to just being I'm going to do technical line by line of cards, and strategically there are some benefits to doing that.
I would also just say, a lot of people, be patient to hit your peak.
Right, and
a lot
that's
of people a lot of people are I want to be the best right now.
Right,
It's
it's not
bro,
gonna
you don't
happen.
want to top out right now. You want to top out when you're done.
And also just realize that, maybe you won't. Just realize that there's a lot of things that debate offers that isn't always winning the
Right.
NDT or things like that. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, I would love to win the NDT, but I have found that the research skills I've gained from debate, the definitely communicative skills in both writing and speaking that I've gained for debate, have been incredibly helpful, and they are part of what debate offers. And to realize that that is valuable, that debate isn't always. That we should ask more importantly about what is debate giving us, and that's what we should be thinking, what is debate really giving us? And also, I guess the last thing that I would tell my novice self, and maybe is to realize when debate has given all that it will give, and then to realize that you need to start giving to others.
That's really good. That's really
That you need to be cognizant that there will be a point where debate stops giving to you,
Right.
and it's your turn now to give back
And
to other
whenever
people.
you're giving back, you have to remember what people did for you.
They didn't have to. There's so many
There's
different
so many people. I would literally not be. I would never have gotten to the octaves if it wasn't for people doing stuff for me that they didn't have.
And shout out to Darius. Honestly, Darius coached me Darius coached me in high school for prices that are outrageously low. And
Dude, I used to get coached for free in high school.
right, and that's wild that he would do that.
Ridiculous.
And now when small schools come to me, I think about that. And so and I think about that, and I try to make sure that I'm doing prices that are just making sure that kids that don't have coaching have access to it, and realizing that I maybe need to ask for enough so I can eat or pay rent, but I shouldn't be doing things. I should be just cognizant of what people have done for me and giving labor to people. Pay it forward, pay forward what you get from debate.
What about you?
Again, obviously co-signing what both of you said. I think mine might just be a little bit more reductive. I think the one tip and or comment that has really sort of like fundamentally changed my approach to debate was my senior year of high school. I figured out sleep is prep. I think actually a lot of people really don't think about.
That's true. We saw it.
Yeah, the physical relationship that we have to the activity, not only in like the amount
Eat
of
is prep too.
eat is prep to eating is prep.
Take
Eat
care
is
of yourself,
prep.
man. Take care of
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
Debate crashes are not healthy, and
Mhm.
you are gonna hit so many walls, dude. And then tournaments like this, for high schoolers and TOC, dude, take care of yourself. I know like the rounds are important. I know like that next pairing is important. But if you're not taking care of yourself, the backlash is gonna be so much worse than the benefit, and you're not even gonna debate well.
Like those are just like typical things that are not only important in debate but important in your daily life. Like eat healthy, do exercise, sleep well. All of those things will show up in your results. All of them. Healthy body, healthy mind, healthy arguments. So make sure, because I know,
That's a good one.
I think a lot of the debaters that I've met, at least like 80% of them can sort of like identify with the experience that I've had of like, having those crashes, of like not getting enough sleep, being fatigued at tournaments.
We've seen both of us have those crashes.
Exactly.
At
We had a
multiple
moment.
tournaments.
We had a moment at this tournament where
After that second night.
one night we didn't really get
We didn't
any
get
sleep
any
at all.
sleep.
Lost the first two debates that day. First one probably because of that. And so don't let that happen to you.
It's also
Don't
just
let
like,
it
do not let anybody tell you that like the way to stay healthy in debate is to be chugging like 12 Red Bulls a day. Like, Jesus Christ. The amount of Red Bull I've drinking this weekend is ridiculous. I don't want to taste any more
Yeah.
in my life.
And so noting that when you are engaging in I don't want to say self-destructive because it's kind of an exaggeration, but yes, self-destructive practices, you should be cognizant that those practices are self-destructive and that you shouldn't be doing them all the time, and that you should be sort of like
Yeah, because
taking
it definitely does
initiative.
naturalize it becoming part of your daily life.
You got to take initiative in your daily life to remedy those things. Like if you know that you spent a weekend at a debate tournament, like just eating a bunch of junk food because you didn't really have any other choice because of like prep time, you had to like, there was places that weren't really close, but you couldn't go to them, etc. Just make sure you like spend like a week or 2 weeks like being cognizant of what you're eating so that you can sort of like make up for that and keep your body healthy after debate tournaments, not just like.
Because like one day, hopefully, like to at least two of y'all that are watching, like one day you'll end up, Q's spot and Natalie Nez's spot. You don't want that to be the moment you crash. There are a lot of people that definitely do drop in those big moments because they crash, and like it'll change the way you think about the debate, especially. And the more debates you go, the more it's like debates really are won and lost in the margins. The decisions that you make, what flow you're going for, the like. How you answer each argument, all that stuff will matter so much more the higher the stakes, and you gotta be on your absolute best to do it. That's why they're there. Like Natalie, Nez, and Q are there because they're at the top of their game all the time, and part of that is because like no matter how much they downplay it, like they really do do a very good job of just like overall just like making sure they're always in the right mental space to get it done.
I know for sure, like Natalie Nez is a really good example because, her and, the entire Georgetown team, I was talking to David Bernstein about this at Texas, I think. She makes the whole Georgetown team eat healthy at tournaments. Like that is one of their team policies that they have to make sure they're eating like right servings of vegetables, grains, fruits, etc. Yeah, and that's something that she
low-key start doing that, bro. I'm so serious, bro.
Yeah,
That's
probably,
kinda,
but
that's
probably, but it might not happen. But that's definitely one thing that she does, and she enforces on the team, and that's 100% a part of her success in debate, without a doubt. And I think people should try to be modeling that when they can.
Well, I know the round has gotten over, so we're waiting on our FD now. I don't want to hold you up too much longer, but I do have a question that we had.
Hold me up as long as you want. If the
fair
round's
enough.
over, it's gonna be a long time before we get that decision.
Fair
So
enough. Well, let's keep talking.
Please
This
keep
is-
me busy with this rather than having my stomach bubbling for Q.
Absolutely. This has been a great conversation so far. I think that we had 36, 40 viewers, live viewers.
Tough.
So, yeah.
That's the homies.
People are really I think tuning in to hear what you all think. But this is a question that we had a high schooler write in actually that they wanted us to ask the different teams. this student is going to be a newcomer to college debate next year.
Okay.
They are transitioning from a very traditional circuit and going into college, and they want some advice on how, how to handle the transition and how to get better. One thing that they're specifically looking for is, help with, speed, because, traditional
Sure.
debate's not really a big thing.
I mean, I think I can go first because I went not such a large transition in terms of the style of debate, but definitely in terms of the argumentative sense. I think first in terms of like speed, that's something that comes with practice, watching debates online, listening, attempting to flow those debates, doing speaking drills. If you do all of those things consistently, you'll get there eventually, which is one of the good things about the more like inaccessible portions of the debate. But I think the most important aspect, and I think the real big difference that you're going to see between your circuit and college debate is the sort of ideological distinctions. And the advice that I'll give is to stay open. Like in high school, I was a debater that went for Baudrillard on the app and neg in every single debate, except for when I debated black people and I read to lose.
The ultimate pivot.
Which is like, it's definitely a trope that
It's opposite
exists.
for me. I read Baudrillard against black ones.
Nice.
The radical other.
No, that's racist.
There was
No,
the
that's
problem.
super racist. I went for the Baudrillard Academy.
Oh,
Okay.
he said, no, that's racist.
But
so funny.
you should definitely just be open to other fields of literature and be open to other people
'Cause even
who
if
are
it's
willing
like-
to explain it to you when they don't have to. Nate didn't have to explain like anything
Yeah,
about
you
race
fast. So I
debates
could have
to
just
me.
been put you on cats mode and just like extend it. Put the guy there. But it's also just like I feel like that's the only way you learn to beat the arguments. You
That's
know?
true.
You can only learn them by reading. Like, there's no way you can win in debates if you don't just at least step your foot in the water a little bit. You know what I mean? You don't gotta like read like Roderson's whole red, white, black like straight. But like you might
You
want to
should.
like you should.
Listen to a couple, listen to a couple lectures.
like
online.
listen to a
Yeah,
couple
but-
lectures like
And be doing that with other people's fields. Doing
Right.
that with Alexis Gums's work,
Right.
Tiffany King's work. Be making sure you're doing it with
Moten
indigenous
stuff.
work, Moten stuff. Then just like an article or two here and there in those different fields gives one a way to kind of transition. I think to that, obviously, co-saying what Roberto was saying. You have to just be able to prep judges that you're not super sure. Who are just ideologically in the lit base that you are not super familiar with at times, especially if it's K literature, and just be willing to like listen to them, especially early on, like when you're trying to.
especially earlier on wins and losses.
Yeah,
I know as a
freshman-
freshman that's like hard for me to say because like the whole like first round thing, but like for me and Roberto, like especially like up until like I would say like what Gonzaga maybe. Well, no, what was it?
The
It's
swings.
Weber. Yeah, to the swings. Like winning wasn't really really big when we were on. Like we were more so just trying to like figure things out. And like luckily for us, that was able to click kind of quickly on. But like I think like I would have been just as fine if we had gone like if all of this happened, if we had like qualified through districts and then like gone like 4-4 the tournament. You have time. There's
And,
so
and
much
look,
time.
I was terrible my freshman year. I did very badly. I ever broke. I don't know if I ever did break, but just making sure that you're aware that, like we said previously, be aware that your peak doesn't have to be like year one. Like there's going to be time to be working on things. As for speed, I'll be honest with you. If your problem is like, I can't listen to speed, start listening to these like right-wing policy debaters going for hedge.
Alex Miles.
Yeah, just like
Just
listen
go
to
back
them
and
go
study
and
it.
start flowing and listen to it.
Try your best and then go look at what.
Yeah, just keep doing those flowing drills.
I think the best ones. There are a lot of. If you look at a lot of old YouTube videos.
Yeah.
They're actually they'll be the actual flow on the stream, and so you might want to try just listening without looking at the flow. Then
I think
looking at the
Ricardo
flow.
Sands' YouTube.
Yeah, Ricardo,
Yeah,
that's what he does.
Ricardo
Usually.
Sands has
The
the flow on
flows
the side.
usually.
Yeah.
If it's about performing speed, there are obviously ways to do that. The speaking drills that you can do, reading backwards, putting the a or a word in between. I always put the word hegemony in between every word.
Pen and mouth.
Yeah,
I would love to see you read your 1MC with hegemony in between.
it's terrible. Or people do the preacher drills. That's what they always
the
call them.
hegemony alternative.
Yeah, the hegemony, alternative hegemony is hegemony 2, hegemony, whatever, and just doing that. you can get faster. Another part of that is also to realize that some of the people who are really good aren't that fast.
Yeah.
You don't
I'm
have
slow.
to. You do not have to
Slow
be very
boy.
fast.
Dude, I'm probably one of the slowest debaters
To be able
ever been out.
to get through. I mean, like, I'm kind of fast. Don't get me wrong, but like,
Yeah.
Darius and I read 4 cards in the AF last year. That was the whole AF.
Yeah, we read one. We didn't spread on one AC. The first one AC we read. I really only started spreading when we really did this ballroom map. We only read 3 cards.
Yeah, and so I think that just realizing that if speed's like where you're trying to go, I mean, there are definitely ways to do it. It's just, there are tons of drills that I'm sure people will know besides the ones I've listed, and it's definitely doable. But don't think that it's like the thing that you have to do in order to be competitive in this, even outside of traditional debate.
Yeah, definitely a question of sufficiency rather than maximization.
And I think I was reading some judge's paradigm who has that little thing where I think it was a quote by Jared Atchison, which is like, speed is not how quickly one reads something, but how efficient one is in putting out arguments, and that are understandable, and that's definitely where I think we can orient more in thinking about speed. As for also making the tradition, find people that there are people that are, I think, clearly identifiable, who are just like really open to talk to new people, and it's really scary. It's really scary to meet with people who you don't know. I remember, I put the burden on myself a little bit more this year to be more socially interactive with people in the community, and
Thank you for doing that, by the way.
oh, stop.
Nice for us to be buddies.
Well, I'm very, maybe it's not clear in a lot of ways, but I'm very at times reclusive, and so I realized I hadn't made a lot of those connections, and I think that it's really important to. It's really important to reach out to people and just be like, hey, hello, I've heard things about you, and I want to, talk to you if you ever get the opportunity. And most people, I find, especially, are willing to at least entertain a single conversation or two, and just realize that.
Sorry, quick snap.
No, of course, gotta snap it up. And so just like realizing that, I think, is important as well. Finding a community of people that are kind of where you're at, and whether you're the PRL or whether you're resistance. I hope you're not the PRL. Don't be the PRL.
Oh, yeah, let's actually advise against this. Look, man.
Don't
look,
be
man.
the PRL.
If you're
Don't
gonna come in- if you're
find that community, but there's literally like a community for every
man.
group of people really in debate. Even
I'm the good policy people.
even
Yeah.
even the PRL. But
Find the nice ones.
but there's definitely Comrade Hemoth.
Comrade. Dude, when you got asked about the hedge fund, he was like, nah, bruh, I just think the cap case true. Sorry.
Yeah, Comrade.
Comrade He-Man.
People start walking around tournaments calling people comrades now, bro.
Oh, don't do that.
Comrade.
But there's definitely ways to do that, and finding that community I think is important. Not only because it will help you learn more about the things that you want to do in debate, but it's also just important in. Sometimes people really be out here and they're judging decisions. Sometimes they really do. And sometimes you need to go to someone and be like, listen to what just happened. Listen to what someone just told me with a straight face about how they
You
evaluated
need that
this round.
venting, bro.
Right.
You need to vent to
Someone just
that
told me the alt
understands.
was too good, and I don't know what to do with it. Right? Like,
I can see that if we're winning on AIDS outweighs class.
Here's the thing. No one likes someone who gets too in their feels about their war stories, but everyone likes a good war story.
Yeah,
You gotta walk that line.
That's true.
Tell
And
the good war story.
also, there's a fine line kind of between post-rounding and like just not accepting that you've lost the debate.
Yeah.
Like
There's nothing you can do once that ballot is
there's nothing you can do,
published.
and like
It's gone.
sometimes you're angry and like fair enough.
Now, there are some times that there are some
sometimes look there are some
justifications.
like don't let me write it, like there are some people that have made decisions and they deserve to be called out for what their decision was made. Absolutely. But also at the same time, I guess what I would say in those instances is like do your best to not let those people haunt you after you leave that room, right? Like this was a big I'll say it, last year we were debating at Gonzaga, Ken Strange told us with a straight face that he would never vote on ontology. Right? You said he would never vote on it. It was never. And I remember being really mad about it. But I remember some great advice that George Lee gave to me. It was, Ken Strange is gonna go to bed. He's gonna be fine. He's not angry about this round at all. Like he is going to. And I think this is true of a lot of racist stuff, sexist stuff that happens in the world. That the people who do that to us, like they are going. And not to say that your anger is not justified, but just also realize that like they kind of part of structural power is that they don't carry the emotional weight of having to be hurt or angry.
And they also get kind of pleasure out of your.
Yeah, and they get a little bit of absolute. That's the masochism to say, right?
The masochistic kind of pleasure trip.
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna throw more words in there.
But yeah, and so just realizing that in terms of debate, it's fine to be post-rounding, and it's even fine to be mad about some decisions that definitely aren't just. But also to realize.
It's also just like remember that, and I was saying this to Trey earlier, like all this stuff. Debate, you gotta, like, even though, debate's not just a game, you gotta play the game.
Yeah, you gotta play the game.
You don't wanna shoot all your toes too early. You know what I mean? It's like you don't want there are gonna be some judges that you're gonna need in the future.
There's gonna be some middle of the road judges that you're like, I have to.
You gotta let them know they made a bad decision and hope that they won't make the same bad decision next time. But you're gonna need them for the future. You can't ruin your relationship now, especially when you're young. That was what Kevin was telling us the most when he was coming in this year. Like he's like, when you're mad about decisions, like you
just realize you're gonna have these people
for 3 years.
And I think one of the ways that I've always dealt with decisions that I've been like, wow, this is obviously an argument I made that you should have voted on, is to be like, this is what I think I said, and I think it should have led to this conclusion for you. But obviously, what do I need to say differently to get you to get to that conclusion? And some people may tell you there's nothing you can say to have gotten me to that conclusion. And then work, right?
Take them off the
Adjust your prefs. Yeah. Now you know, right? Now you know Ken Strange will never vote for ontology.
Right.
Like now you know, right?
It's all preparation for
and
this
that's
anyway.
right. It's all coming back for not even
practice.
just for the NDT of that year. It's going to be the NDT of your next year, the way that you do judges as you move forward. And it's an iterative process of learning, of losing rounds. Losing rounds is just as important as winning them in terms of getting better. Losing sometimes is more important. Is figuring out what your argument is, who you need to be preffing, who you need to be.
Because there are a lot of times where you win on little stuff, but you just really lose so much other stuff. You just really got lucky.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you need to really recognize that maybe you probably should have.
And if you do win, you really can't sit down and reflect on those issues that happen in the debate because you just gotta move up to the next round.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the most important and useful questions you can ever ask a judge after you lose a debate that you think you didn't lose is, what do you think was the winning 2NR2AR? What could I have done? What could I have changed about my speech in order to get your ballot? That question will almost always
and I
give
think
you a
that's
determining answer.
And I think, and I've, and then later, sometimes when you talk to people like that, and you be like, if you have them again, I've directly referenced it. I've been like, hey, last time I had this debate in front of you. You said this. This is what I'm doing right now. That is that thing. So you are going to give me this ballot. And it's very effective, remind people as well. I have an Excel spreadsheet of every judge who's judged me and all the comments they made, and also if they voted win-loss for half and egg, how many times, and I keep track of that in every round. I add to it.
The data is so important.
Yeah, it's incredibly important. I started it last year. I have a second sheet for this year, right? And just being and just absolutely and just be, when you're prepping for a round. I remember I was talking to Binghamton about this, was that, when they were being round the first, and they announced judges, sometimes you can just listen to the judges and be like, that's going to be a 2-1 for this person. That's going to be a 3-0 for them. And you just got to be cognizant that sometimes when you're fighting that uphill battle.
Sometimes that'll tell you more than the paradigm.
Absolutely. It will absolutely. And you just got to. People lie on the paradigms all the time. And pro tip that Jacob Smith taught me. You should look at who's preffing people and how they voted in those debates, because it's online on the tab room. Don't trust the paradigm. Look at who is preffing them, because there'll be people who will be like, I'm totally down for the K, but you'll notice no K teams have preffed them. So there's a reason for that. Voting for K teams. So just be cognizant.
One of the things that Nico said that I think is really important is the ability to collect data as you progress. I think one of the big things that big teams have a really large advantage on is the ability to compile large amounts of data in a small amount of time.
Even us.
Just before the NDT, Jared and Justin, they did us a favor and they went through and compiled all the judge data from throughout the year, and we used that to influence the way in which we did our preps.
They highlighted specific judges who we usually prep, and they were like, look, there was a judge that had voted against Wake Forest 14 times.
Ooh.
And we prepped them every tournament. They were in a lot of class debates, and we decided not to take them to the NDT. Thank God.
Fair
Yeah.
enough.
14 times. Like that's and we would have never even
And
noticed.
looking
Like,
at the
we know
parent-
they would have never voted for us, but every time they give an RFD, they're like, it's so close, right? You could have done
Yeah,
this,
and
you
you'll
could've
and you'll
done
have
that.
and you'll
It kind of coerces you to be like, oh, I can pref them, but it's like you never really think about, wait, have they actually even voted for us before?
Right.
Maybe they got some other stuff going on. Maybe that's just not our. our
No,
kind of
absolutely.
judge.
And there are people who will be like, it was this one line, But I think that's and debates are so subjective that like a lot of times there could always be one line that could make the difference. You have-
30 seconds here.
Having judged debates right now in college and high school, you could always find the decision you want to give if you want to, depending on like where you, because like obviously collapsing down to the 2NR and the 2AR, people are going to make huge concessions on some parts of the argument. And as a judge, if you wanted to, you could always extend some stuff around. There's very few debates that you could like be like, oh, this is the only person I could justify voting for. And so, I think just realizing that, taking that data and being clear about who's
That's
voting
in
for you.
college.
So for
High
those
school's
of y'all
a
that
little
are on
clearer,
small
but-
squads, don't really have access to that large amount of data compilation,
You gotta collect
you
it
should
yourself.
make sure that you're collecting it as you go through
Absolutely.
the year. Because you definitely, it's like, as much as I hate to say this, it is definitely impossible for you to show up like 2 weeks before the NDT and say, I want to compile all of the judge data from the year
It
against
won't
all
happen.
of the teams that I want to prep. It's just impossible. Because you won't get any actual, even if you
And
do
you don't
succeed,
need to. You don't need
won't
to
do any real
collect
prep.
data on everybody.
Just the
You,
people that
you
matter
really
for
need
you.
to
Just people
take.
that-
You need to take the template of the big, because a lot of people are really just copying other people's women's preps. Like there are a whole bunch of teams that literally, if you looked at their prep sheets, it'd be damn near the same, except for the bottom like 30%, which is all the strike range anyways,
Yeah.
right? So it's like they just have the numbers messed around because they don't care about them. But if you look at who's gettable for them, you can see a lot of these teams take the same judges, so you just need to find a way to manipulate them and sneak some in that you want. You know what I mean?
Like after every tournament,
we
you
won
sit
a
down
lot.
on your spreadsheet,
We won a
update
lot
it.
of 2-1s at this tournament by just sneaking judges in, just sneaking them. And it was like crazy that we would get panels and we were like, damn, like our prep sheet really kind of worked out there.
Yeah.
We got what we needed. You know what I mean? We'll take the 2-1.
Yeah, and just being aware of that, being aware like of some of these judges that tend to judge policy teams, but maybe who have told you that if you do this one or two thing, they'll vote for you consistently, and just figuring out what that is. That's an amazing thing. Q is really amazing at. Q is able to really get these policy judge ballots.
That's
all
how
the
she
time.
went 8-0 at Kentucky.
Right, and just having that knowledge of being like, look, and and sometimes calling out judges' presuppositions in the debate, be like, hey, look, I know that you are the type of person that's like, death gaps are probably bad, and I want to save them. I know that's how you feel.
Right,
and
especially
that's
on
your
this topic,
personal.
that was
Right,
so
especially
good.
like I
A
know
lot
that
of
you
judges
think.
took that as a truism.
Right, like I know that that's how you think, and I need you to just be like, one, be clear that like my argument does answer that. It does
Right.
say they are not going to solve this problem. But two, right, there are these other factors that you should be thinking.
I
And
think
so
talking
to judges
is
sometimes
really important.
is important, and some of the
People
most
value instruction. They
Yeah.
really do.
yeah, some of the most persuasive speeches I've ever seen Q give have been speeches where she has
Yes.
just slowed down for
Yes.
like 20, 30 seconds and been like, look, this is a truth claim. They do not have an answer to it, and I know it maybe goes against something that you think is fundamentally true, but you should not vote on that. And that's, that's powerful. It's good.
effective, it's powerful.
I'm actually gonna bounce. I'm gonna hit up this final decision.
Absolutely.
I appreciate sitting with you all. It's been great.
Yep.
Uh,
Very good.
yeah,
Talking
thanks
to
much.
you, and that was Nico Juarez, OUJS.
Oh, thank you.
And we do still have Wake Forest EF. That is Nay Edwards, and I don't think I've ever introduced him, which is my bad, is Roberto Fernandez.
Rob, the boy.
Yeah, Rob,
Long
as
boy
he
central.
goes by, and I think we have like 80 viewers right now.
Hey,
watching
shout out
this.
to the homies.
Yeah. So let's talk more about you all. I know I started this discussion off with these Naruto headbands, so which you weren't in here for, Rob. But you want to talk about actually just integrating some of those like just personality aspects of yourselves into your arguments?
I think more so than attempting to appeal to other people in debate, other debaters or judges, there's like a few people that will obviously like get whatever reference you're making, or will be like, oh, that's kind of cool, that's funny, or they'll ask you about it. I think what really matters most is the fact that like we sort of like had this like connection over this meme that we brought to the NDT to like troll. It's like we're wearing these Naruto headbands and we feel better about debating because we were talking about this like, hey, it'd be really funny if we just wore these headbands to this tournament.
Find some fun.
And it'd be
dude.
kind of cool if we said we were
That's-
the
that's-
Waikatsuki.
That's been me and Rob's motto for debate the whole year. It's like it's no point in debating if we're not having fun. So the whole year, our whole thing has been like, if we're not having fun doing it, then whatever. Like, you know what I mean? It's just there's no point to it. It's like we thought that the NET, coming in as freshmen, like what if we just did not take it as seriously as people?
Might as well goof around a little bit.
You know, so why not goof around, pass out condoms and lube and stuff to people, dental dams, etc. Why not, you know, just push the limits, you know what I mean? And it worked for us. It's like, I feel like when you start just like, and I think it's like because the reason why the app was so good is because everybody was having fun. Like everybody's like bumping to the music as they flow, you know.
Yeah,
Everybody's kind of like
we were just
we're
playing
talking
this,
to people
like,
as we like hand out
obscene
stuff,
music in
you
the
know, like
1AC.
sharing jokes with people, like all this stuff. It's just like, what if we just like took a little bit of the seriousness out and just like had a little fun with people and just like treated judges and the people in debate like people instead of just like robots that are like watching us. You know what I mean? They're real people that are there.
Pro tip, call all your judges by their first name if you know them even marginally. Actually, that might not be a pro tip.
That's actually not a pro tip.
But we do it, and it's funny.
It is funny. It's also just like I think that people. I think you can. I think the reason me and Rob have gotten like really kind of tricky for teams this year is that we've just gotten so creative at all aspects of the debate. Cross-sex is creative, AF's creative, the way we change the 2AC to 1AR, what we do on the neg, always creative, you know what I mean? When we broke the onto-side stuff and kind of were just like, what if we impact turn ontology in a different way? What if we read an Afro-pessimistic framing, but like with a different structural analysis? What if we started reading cap and framework against policy teams and seeing how they liked it? You know what I mean? All this stuff is like stuff you just have to play with and see how it works. And like usually when you play with some stuff, you probably get a couple wins out of it. It might not work forever, you know, teams find flaws, etc. Then you just move on to the next thing. Just keep playing around. And I guess that's like one of the benefits of having just like great coaching staff. But I think that just being able to play around has been kind of like our thing the whole year. The Moten and Harney debt and credit stuff, like just finding new stuff and new ways to interact with teams in ways that are just fun.
Definitely.
You know, do you want to maybe talk about how, like, your creative process?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's weird. It's kind of different for everything. I think that, like...
On the app, usually
Yeah.
it's like... So, up until this tournament, I was the 2A. And so the way that we were cutting affirmatives, we ended up cutting 2 affirmatives before this tournament that we'd read in the previous year. We cut a Black Vitalism affirmative for Weber, which was sort of like the anomaly in the process because we had been partners for 6 days before that tournament. And so we just had to like cut an app as fast as possible.
So
and
he was to lose and I was black, and so we made it black to lose.
And so that was the way that one went down, but then we had, you know, our Black Queer Morning affirmative. And it's usually like, we just like to read a lot of literature all the time. And so I think one of us, I think it might have been me that stumbled on these Clark cards and showed them to Nay at some point. And then like a month later, Nay was like, yo, let's make this an app. And so we just like have this like weird database in our minds of all the things that we've read and all the things that we've seen. And, like at any one moment, one of us will make a connection. Like Nay saw a bunch of other cards about Morning, like this Whoopshet book that they cut and a bunch of other stuff. And they were like, this can be an affirmative, Roberto, let's go back and cut this. And so keeping that sort of like collective memory of like what you've seen.
I think it's
and the
also just
relationship
like
it has to other things.
whenever we hang out and stuff, it's just like, what if we tried to do this? Like, you know what I mean? That's always the question that we did. And always, a lot of our stuff starts off as like trolls that like we make up that are like funny. And then we're like, but like, what if we actually did it though? And then we start thinking about like, what would they say? Yeah. So we're like, what would they say if we actually went for, we actually solve AIDS? Like we did. And like, we were just like, why not? And so it's just like, you know, it's like, we'll see, you know? It's like, and then I guess with the next stuff, like the next stuff for me is more like, I try to find, so like, I was like kind of born and bred through like reading Afro-pessimism. Like that's what I was really committed to in high school. And so like, my kind of literature right now is just like, what can I find in the context of black studies that kind of implicate what people are saying on the topic? What ways can I kind of like take away what people are most comfortable going at while still staying in my comfort zone? So onto side, it's like most people are ready to read their Gordon evidence, but like what if it just no longer applied? But like we still got all the offense we need of being like, this is just what it is. You know what I mean? And so it's like that, and then like it was also kind of just like, for us, the way this topic was kind of structured is that we just really didn't like the way that like asks are going against the next shots, because like the whole like the death gap stuff, like so many like judges kind of thought was of it as like a truism, and it just became so hard of like a burden of proof.
Like everyone just came to the conclusion, like really early on in the year, that the core controversy of the topic was not controversial. Single pair is pretty good, you know, and so that made it really, really, really difficult for K teams, especially because, you know, sometimes it's a bit harder to go for like defense plus this outweighs.
Especially when teams start just stripping down the AF to only that. You know, they only have to win. They save a couple people and they win. You know what I mean? Which is funny because that's then how we constructed our AF. But you know, it's like what we kind of did instead was that we were just like, what if we just read, you know, a criticism that they didn't that turns their ability to solve death gaps
With an impact that outweighs.
with an impact that outweighs, i.e. the cap K, you know, extinction, all that, blah, blah, blah. And we read a framework argument that's like, we don't even need to win death gaps, good or bad. It's about what you've done, right? Like the embodiment framework argument is how have you tied your social location to your advocacy, which means death gaps doesn't matter because you don't solve death gaps because there's no reason why you are responsible for doing so. And so it's just like, what if we just found ways to kind of evade that question, which means we never have to answer the question of whether single payer is good or bad. We never have to answer that question. It's just like, maybe.
Because if we do, then the F's already won.
Yeah, because as soon as you answer the you're just, as soon, that debate just becomes so bad. Every time we would get into that debate, people would ask that question, like, what about X treatment? We'd be like,
Yeah, it's like especially when we're on the after, like, do people who want and or need cancer treatment, do you think they should get it? Do people who need dialysis, do you think they should get it? People who need an organ transplant, should they get it? Heart surgery, should they get it? And I think like throughout the year, we've heard maybe like 15 to 25 different procedures that like obviously the affirmative cannot provide. And like obviously the K is not capable of supplanting. And they're just like, single payer solves this, you know, some revolutionary needs
there's
a heart
also just
surgery,
like
they should
a
go to the
lack of,
hospital.
there was a lack of like, and this is especially with this topic, there was a lack of a lot of critical authors taking a hard stance against single payer.
Yeah, 'cause there was something interesting we saw on Twitter actually. Robin James, one of the authors that, you know, like was really big in building the sort of like resiliency argument that was been very popular this year. They had I don't forget what it's called. It's like it's not an Ask Me Anything like Reddit, but basically that a little anonymous thing where people can ask them questions. Someone like a debater, definitely a debater, went on there and asked them like, do you think single payer healthcare is good? And Robin James was like, obviously yes. And that's sort of like a model for like all of these other authors have, you know, issues with maybe like the logics of insurance, of like accountability, risk calculation, etc. But none of them think that like a single payer system would be materially
actually
worse
didn't
than
see
private
that.
insurance.
That's such a meme.
I retweeted that. Henry Ferroli tweeted
I
that.
did not see it. Did that come out lately? When did that come
Yeah,
out?
like 2 days ago.
Oh, yeah. See, this is nothing NDT. Like, I'm not like on Twitter that much.
Oh, no, I feel bad.
What you been doing, Rod? No,
Winning activates.
Man. So since we're at the end of the season, though, and you got next season ahead of you, you got 3 more years each of you. You know, what do you got planned for the summer? What you got summer plans for prepping?
Well, first I'm gonna go home
Yeah.
and relax and not think about debate for like a month, so I can actually get some sleep and like hang out with people and like love my family and stuff. And then after that, I think we're both gonna probably be at the weight camp for 6 weeks.
Any of y'all in chat will
shout out to
be
y'all
there.
going to the weight camp. I know a lot of people that are going to the weight camp.
You will see
I
us.
can't wait. I can't wait to work with y'all. I hope y'all are excited to work with us. It's gonna be dope. We're gonna do so much cool stuff. But then I think the topic will come back around like the last like a week or so. We're at the weight camp, and then we'll probably start a little bit of our work then. But during that whole summer process while we're at the camp, that'll be also time for us to practice.
Skills development, mostly.
Hopefully, yeah, just hopefully developing a little bit more variety in our strategy, trying to change it up even more next year. Hoping to bring a lot of surprises, a lot of memes, a lot of memes.
We've got a lot of real interesting things planned.
Our wiki is gonna be a very interesting place.
I'm gonna have to keep just like follow it
Yeah,
every turn.
it'll
Be like,
be,
okay, see what's up now.
It'll be a fun thing to follow. But and then hopefully we'll be able to perfect all that stuff. And so when the topic comes out, we already have a couple ideas. You know, hopefully with whatever topic comes out, we'll have some ideas ready in our heads to think about what our first couple aft strats, next strats will be, and then go back home, do some work, you know, hang out with some more friends, then get ready for GSU. Kick it off right. Hopefully get a dub there.
Yeah.
Hopefully more than one dub.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully you get the
Goes
whole
1-7.
dub. Right, goes 1-7. Oh Jesus! Just repeat all over again. Season doesn't start till Weber.
Hardcore, bro.
We have Alden and Greg and Weaver. Just replay the whole season. That's so funny.
Oh man, that'd be a good way to start it. Weaver's like such a good time to start the season because you get to see everyone else do their thing first. Ruby, we are getting pretty late here. Do you all want to keep going?
Yeah, dude, for sure. I'm down to go.
For
Once
sure.
again, it helps me keep stress free from this Q decision. That makes me
Absolutely.
laugh.
Do you want to join us?
Ruby, come join. We're doing an interview.
We're doing like a little
live
interview.
stream interview for Exodus.
Yeah.
Come through. No, Ruby, come on. Come see. They have to know about the future. They have to know about the future, Ruby.
By the way, this is Ruby Klein. She's gonna be Nate's partner next year. Wake EK.
Wait, you can't
Definitely
come here,
happening.
Alex.
It's not true.
What? Oh, Ruby, breaking my heart on the live stream. Wow. We did not talk about this. It's like,
No, UK is a dream.
there we go. Back to it. Fantastic.
Well, we were just talking about next year. Actually, when you walked in, we were talking about what people's plans are for prepping. Do you got anything?
I mean, I think it's more about
No.
No,
Well,
we already answered. We already answered that. Onus is on you,
You
Ruby.
tried.
Oh, and now I'm on the live stream. I feel like I'm less sort of centered than you all are, given practice. I know y'all have already answered, but I don't even.
EK will be prepping. How about that?
EK will be
prepping. Surprise in the store. All surprises because EK is new.
Yeah, no one
Perfect
will
answer.
expect
Watch out.
strategies.
Right. We have to,
Including us.
little did they know that we may or may not be reading a plan next year.
I mean,
Who knows?
everything's.
Get your state's counterplan theory blocks ready.
All right, we'll see you later. Ruby.
Peace out. So I want to talk to you all about difference in topics, actually, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we were talking about this earlier, and you all had some interesting points about like changing the topic process and like some of the really great high school topics that they've had. Do you think, and this is maybe a hot take, do you think that the college circuit should adopt more of the type of resolutions that the high school does? Because they have some pretty critical ones.
Dude, they have really good
Here's what I think the college topic should. I don't know if they should adopt it exactly, but I think they should come a bit closer to it. Is I think the cycle that the high school topics have going on right now is wrong.
DJ.
The last
DJ, we're doing an interview.
turn the music off.
Yes,
Come
but
in.
turn your
Come in.
music off. It's a live stream, DJ. Come on,
Sit
stop it. Turn it off. You're so rude.
Put that
Turn
away.
it off. You're such a terrible role model. First, sit down. Now I have to get you together.
DJ, this is Exodus Files live stream.
How's it going?
I think people are pretty excited. We were just talking about the question at hand is, do you think that the college circuit should adopt more resolutions like the high school circuit?
And more like
More
the K versus
resolutions?
the high school topics have more K-based resolutions, like the education topic, the immigration topic,
So
the
surveillance topic.
surveillance, right? Oh, dude, the surveillance
By the way, DJ was in the finals of the TOC that year.
Oh,
For
yeah.
those of you that don't know.
boy.
Lost to demand.
Okay. Anyways, but what were you saying, Rob?
I definitely think that the high school topic has like a really nice cycle going on right now for the way they choose their topics. I think the college topic cycle is a bit weirder. It's like the legal topic, the domestic topic. I can't can't have it off the top of my head right now, but I do think that the high school topics are just generally slightly nicer. I do enjoy them a lot more in terms of like my prep, because like when I'm coaching high school teams, I'm just like, yo, there's all this cool stuff we can do. Why don't we,
Yeah.
sit down and
I
talk
have
about
so
it?
much more fun making a high
Is this
school
live
argument.
stream?
Yes.
Yes.
Like niggas watching.
Yes,
Yeah.
you did.
What's up, niggas?
Yo, wake AW, everybody, DJ Williams. Yeah, I agree though. Like, I 100% like making arguments for the high school topics more than I did the college topics. Like, this topic put me in a deep, dark
I
hole.
think people need to read a plan. I'm gonna be real.
They're so
Y'all
annoying.
niggas
You
need
Well, how'd that work out for you, DJ?
Oh, okay. I'm about to dip on that one. I ain't gonna put my comments on that one. I didn't want to read that plan. Don't read plans. Hey. Don't read plans. Don't read plans, please. Like, if you read plans, I'm not gonna vote for you. I promise you.
You don't judge anywhere.
We'll see.
We'll see. All right,
I
bro.
might be judging and debating. You never know.
That's fair. All right, we'll see. The Wake Forest debate team, everyone.
This has kind of been a Wake Forest stream.
Stop it.
I'm just turning it on. I'm not gonna blast that.
You're annoying.
Well, Wake Forest is a great squad. You know, it produces some of the best coaches in the country. So, you know, there's nothing. Yeah, I mean, right? I was talking to somebody. I think it was at CETA actually. It was like, you know, it's pretty hands down. Wake has the best coaching staff in the country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without a
Not-
doubt.
Not
Come
even
to
close.
Wake, apply, presidential scholarship, come through.
They
Amber's
got more than
dope.
that too. They got
Deadline is in
Amber-
November next year. Please
Amber's-
make sure you get your applications in.
Amber's dope, Shanara's dope, Justin's dope, Jared's dope. All the GAs are dope. More cool GAs coming next year.
Hey, but if your grades is tight like mine was, they give you a full ride plus $10,000 in your bank account every year. Chilling, you don't have to do shit. My parents make hella money. It's not about that.
That is not a guarantee, by the way.
Not a guarantee. You gotta be nice. You gotta be nice with it. If you're not nice, then don't apply. But if you're nice, you might get it. You never know. You never know.
Anyway, but yeah, apply, presidential scholarship. We have a dope working staff. Oh my God, our coaching staff. So this is crazy. So the way I got recruited to Wake. So the reason why I decided to go to Wake Forest was because
Leave the kid.
leave. The reason why I decided to come to Wake Forest is because I can fully say this is because of Amber Kelsey. Amber had been helping me a little bit in high school because she had been working for Towson at the time. And when I found out that she would be getting the job at Wake, I insta committed because I knew that like the Wake Forest debate team, I knew that it would help me intellectually. I knew it would help me in debate, out debate. I think that the coaches that we have are just so good in every aspect of the activity. It's insane. I think that they've kind of proven that, like, without a doubt, that they're just consistently just a top-tier coaching staff that just does everything you need. Just and whatever you want to do, they'll make sure that they'll have somebody for you, and that they'll try to do their best to get you to the best of what you want to do. Like kind of what Nico was saying about the OU